Alright, everybody. So, I saw something before the stream started. Was somebody... Okay. Somebody confirm this. Confirm, deny, whatever. Did somebody gift 5 memberships at the start of the stream? Somebody named L? Would L please stand up? Am I crazy? I think I saw this when I was looking at the stream chat a little bit earlier. Tessamar saying Yonko is stronger. Okay, we can wrap it up, call it a stream right there. I guess we got our answer. Okay, yeah, I think L did. L gifted 5 subs. Thank you very much, L, if you are still here. I do not see right now who received the subs. Or the memberships, you know what I mean. Whoever did, please say thanks to L. L, thank you very, very much. Really, really appreciate that. Yusuf says Morj acting like he doesn't read chat. I had to read chat to change the time. Because I was running behind. So I changed the time from 7:15 EST to 7:30 EST. And then I saw there's already 5 gifted. L gifted 5 subs because you said you weren't going to start stream otherwise. This is not true. This is propaganda, but I still appreciate the 5. Thank you very, very much, man. Let's get the stream likes to 100. We got a hot topic today. Very hot topic. I'm curious. So this is one of those topics that we're going to slowly get the answer. Right now is the ideal middle ground time where we can kind of lay out what we believe is going to be the answer before we start getting some more concrete feats either way. Tony69, thanks for the 12. Surprised to find out you have the same favorite movie genre taste as myself, since you talked about primer, coherence, etc. You should watch Memento, seen that. Time Crimes, I think I've seen that. Predestination, I've seen that. Memento, yeah, I've already seen. It's tricky because, like, there's a lot of movies where I don't know what the genre is. Like, I don't, what genre would, what's 8.5? Surrealist, psychological comedy, drama film, like, it's 4 different genres, right? There's a lot of films I like that I guess would fall under, I'm surprised it's labeled comedy at all. It has, yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of movies I like that are a variety of genres, but if you're saying, like, straightforward, give me one thing, put it on a box, I would say I love sci-fi. I like sci-fi a lot. Any sci-fi... I like sci-fi a lot because sci-fi, I don't know, you can delve into lots of interesting... I feel like you can delve into a lot of interesting, like, philosophical concepts or hypotheticals with sci-fis or what-ifs, etc. And that's always fun for me to watch, when it's done well. Behanoid, thanks a lot. If Venus is Zoro's final opponent, that means he's probably stronger than Mihawk, who's a Yonko-level fighter and around Shanks' strength. So those are the things that we're going to be speculating on here today, right? Stuff like that is evidence. Am I going to come out here and say that Venus is stronger than Mihawk? No. Am I even going to suggest it's a possibility? Depends on how much hate I want to get from Mihawk fans. So we'll see. But, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Venus is stronger than Mihawk. I don't personally think that's the case. But I think it's, like, stuff that we can talk about. And I think that it might be more nuance to it than a straightforward yes-no. L, thanks a lot. Oh my god. Okay, L is not an industry plant. L's saying, bro, I love the merch. Thank you very much. Coming in with 5 gifted memberships and promoting the merch. I'm going to go ahead and post the merch. Oh shit, commands. I got to make a note for myself. Commands. Commands. Stream commands. Got to add that shit in. Stream commands. Got to do that at some point. So that I can just drop merch for the people. We're going to add new stuff soon. Yeah. I'm dropping it here. Muhammad D. Luffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 16 months, man. Yonko win, good night. I do think... look, let's talk about it. Alright? Let's talk about it. Hi, Morj, do you read spoilers? I missed something from Rodrigo Liaga. Let me get to that in a second. Do I read spoilers? It depends. I've stopped trying to avoid spoilers, is what I'll say. I've stopped trying to avoid spoilers, and also the biggest thing... So there's a few things. One, if there's a video I've dropped if there's a video I've dropped recently where I'm like somewhat worried that the next chapter is going to completely ruin the video, if that makes sense, then usually just out of fear, I will go ahead and read the spoilers for next chapter to make sure that the most recent video wasn't ruined. But that was if that's only if that's the case. Outside of that, I don't like actively avoid spoilers. So if something pops up on my timeline or something like that, I just see it. I got tired of doing the thing of like going each week, muting some shit, because you got to do that so early on. I don't know. And a lot of people don't even care, and they'll just say some shit or drop a panel and not even whatever, or people will tag me. So I've stopped trying to avoid them. I don't normally actively seek them out. However, since that's not true. Since the chapter got delayed, the chapter's release has gotten delayed one day further from Thursday to Friday, now I do kind of have to read the chapters because I have a set window of time where I can write the scripts and everything like that. So I do need to kind of know a little bit, like I can't wait all the way to Friday to write the scripts just because there's a sort of assembly line process that goes into this. I have to write, I have to record, I have to send out instructions for the images guy, editor needs time to do his thing, thumbnail guy needs time to do his stuff. So that kind of does hurt it. So usually I do know spoilers to some degree nowadays. I just kind of have to. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully TCB, it's a temporary situation and we can shift back to Thursdays. Rodrigo Aliaga, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 1 month. I know that you were one of the most recent people to join and you were asking about Pirate King tier just 1 month ago. So glad you've joined and stuck with it. Hi Morj, love the podcast. I'm happy you enjoyed it, man. I'm happy that you're happy. I'm happy that you're happy that you signed up for it. Anyways, I think with Gorosei, regeneration is the decisive factor in this. I would agree it is a huge factor because if they all have limitless regeneration, then even Saturn can beat Kaido by just outlasting him, can't he? I've never been on the train of like just infinitely being able to regenerate means that you're stronger than the other person. I view things like being captured, because a lot of people throw like Andy from Undead Unluck. It's not major spoilers to say this because it's part of it's just his ability, right? He can't be killed, right? That's his thing. He can regenerate from pretty much anything. I don't know what feats he has in the recent manga because I'm not up to date. But in general, he just can't be killed by pretty much anything. But he's been defeated, like he's been captured in the past. That's a thing. I'm not off the train that if you just don't I'm not off the train that winning by not dying or just living till the opponent dies of old age is a win. I personally I'm not on that train. Or we can specifically set the parameters that, being captured or something does count as being defeated. All right? I'm of that mindset. Because then it's just, I don't know. Then there's lots of like immortal characters who are really weak who basically are like technically win every fight. You know what I mean? That's just my take on it. Some people might disagree. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100. Retro Records, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 19 months, man. Hey, Morj, I saw a post on Reddit that said that Queen needs to be proven wrong for Zoro's backstory to be good. Thoughts? ? Okay, so I don't think Zoro's backstory is good either way. I think even if Queen shit does come back into play, I don't think that makes Zoro's backstory good. I do think that Queen's backstory is just a little bit odd, or Zoro's backstory is just a little bit odd in that it presents something that is then challenged in the backstory as being incorrect, but never really is then shown to be incorrect later in the story. You know what I mean? Or like it's never really a point again in the story outside of Tashigi's stuff. So Tashigi's stuff is where it's relevant again. However, many people are of the opinion, that's Zoro and Tashigi's most recent conversation even, talking about how Tashigi's a woman, so Zoro doesn't respect her as a swordsman or whatever. For that, so if Tashigi's stuff becomes relevant in the future and is the final cap-off to Queen's backstory, then I think we're all good. But if it doesn't happen, then it is just kind of random and bizarre. It's kind of, because if you look at any other backstory, the idea is that if something's being presented there, like Chopper's backstory, Chopper believing can all diseases be cured? Can diseases not be cured? Can you cure a kingdom that's been, tainted by tainted by, a lack of kindness and cruelty like Wapol has done to Drum Kingdom. There's like a lot of ideas that are planted in there, and then the rest of the story goes on to prove certain things wrong, right? The rest of Drum Kingdom, and that's how most One Piece backstories go, right? Queena's, it's like she presents this idea. Zoro's like, no, it's wrong, and he just says it's wrong, but then it's never shown to be wrong, right? It's never really actually proven to be wrong in the story. He's just like, no, just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't be a strong swordsman, and then that's not really followed up on, period. In fact, for the rest of the story, rest of East Blue, it's not relevant, rest of, I don't know, I guess we get to Big Mom, who's a strong swordsman, but that's never really brought up as like a counterpoint. Like, it's just not connected back to Zoro or anything like that. So I'm interested, because I don't think Oda's forgotten about it. Because if you look at again, you go back and read Punk Hazard, Zoro and Tashigi's interactions there, it is related to Tashigi and her strength as a swordsman, swordswoman, whatever you want to say. I did think Wano would be a great fucking little missed opportunity for that to be relevant again in some way, just because, in Wano, none of the 9 scabbards were born women, right? Which I think is more so what, Kiku, obviously we understand what she identifies as, but I don't think that's what Queena's situation alluded to, which was more so what she's saying is that, biologically, if I'm born a girl, I can't be as strong as a male swordsman. And, this isn't, One Piece is a fictional universe with superpowered characters. We already know that, women can be just as strong. Kaido and Big Mom fought for God knows how long equally for the longest time, right? It would have been nice in Wano if we'd seen maybe a strong female swordsman in some capacity, but I guess, I don't know, that would be a whole different can of worms that Oda didn't want to open up. I don't know. Yamato's in Wano, right? But Yamato, I don't think ever really, that I recall, had interesting interactions with Zoro or anything. I don't know. A female swordsman in Wano would have been good, I think. A biologically born female swordsman in Wano is what I mean. Okay, moving on. I do think the Tashigi storyline is going to connect back there, though, personally, with that. I think that there's a reason that she's written in as a character. All right. Red Possum, thanks a lot. I think Gorosei might have special skills, endurance, regeneration, speed, but while that makes them hard to deal, it doesn't equal overall strength. The tricky thing with the Gorosei, and I do agree with what you're saying, and I think regeneration is the biggest thing. Speed is a fighting ability, so I disagree with that. That's not regeneration is kind of okay, well, this is just hacks. This is hard to deal with. But speed is speed, right? We're not speed is a big part of what makes Kizaru really strong. It's part of what makes Luffy really strong. It's part of what makes a lot of characters really strong, right? Speed is part of overall strength. You can't say, okay, endurance and speed, you're saying endurance makes them hard to deal with but doesn't equal overall strength. It's no, but Kaido's endurance is a huge part of his overall strength, right? Speed, Kaido's speed blitz Luffy in Act 1, that's a huge part of his overall strength. I don't know what to say. It's kind of like saying, okay, Katakuri has future sight, but that just makes him tricky to deal with. It's not part of his overall strength. No, these are all part of their overall strength. Regeneration is the one area where I would give you, that's kind of hard to place, because with regeneration, that can kind of be, you can kind of separate that from their fighting strength to some degree, because if someone's getting beat up consistently, but they just have this aspect of them that allows them to keep coming back, you could say, I suppose, that makes them very hard to deal with, because you're winning the fight, but the fight just doesn't end, right? But the other factors you're referring to, speed, speed is part of the fight. You get what I'm saying? If a character's faster than you, then they're gonna have a good shot at fucking you up in straight head-on combat, right? We saw that happen to what did Kizaru say at the start of the arc? Speed is weight, right? That's part of that. That doesn't just make them hard to deal with. That makes it likely that Venus Jura could beat certain characters just head on or something. That's something to factor in. Elsa says, have you watched Pluto? It's a sci-fi. I know that Pluto is written by the same guy as Monster. It was actually in the bracket that we did recently of making me try a new manga or anime, and Pluto did not win, but I'm probably going to try that. Anyway, I've had a friend recommend Pluto to me. I'm going to try that anyway, most likely soon. I think that it's really short, which is very appealing to me because it's easy to get through. I did get to read a bit more Fire Punch. I'm a third of the way through. I hit an interlude. And this series, it's shaping up. It is so fucking sick. Fire Punch is like the... This is... I've never read a manga like this, period. And I've read Chainsaw Man. Fire Punch is a more, like, 3 degrees more down the spectrum of just, like, weird, abstract. It is far more outside the box than Chainsaw Man is. And I think that I'm realizing more and more that Chainsaw Man was Fujimoto taming a lot of what is a little too outside the norm for most readers to try and conventionalize his style of writing a little bit more into a more neat little shonen package. But Fire Punch is its own thing. I'm loving Fire Punch. Not to say I'm like liking it better than Chainsaw Man, but I'm really appreciating. I'm very happy that I'm trying this series for sure. I don't think I'm anywhere near far enough, though, to give any sort of hard opinions on how good I think it is. I just know that a lot of it depends on the direction that it's headed. All I know is that the first 30%, 33% that I've read is fucking amazing. Luis Roberto, thanks for the 10. My take on Big Mom is that she's a mix of Hercules and the Queen of Hearts. I've never heard of that. I've heard Queen of Hearts, yeah, but not Hercules. Cursed by power, everyone who said no to her in childhood is literally dead, along with the Queen of Hearts madness. I don't agree with, like... I lean more Queen of Hearts than anything else because Hercules really, I don't think, unless you're talking about, even if you're talking about old school Greek mythology Hercules, my mind jumped to Disney because Oda takes Disney inspiration for a lot of these things, but even old school Disney, I don't think that, I don't recall it really being a fundamental part of Hercules' story that he was cursed by power. Neither the Disney version was that his thing. It was framed more so as a gift that he had to learn how to use. And old school Greek mythology, I need a refresher, but I don't think necessarily his whole shtick was being cursed by power. Everyone who said no to her in childhood is literally dead. Again, I don't think that that's like Hercules type stuff. I think I'm just gonna have to disagree with a lot of this. I just agree with the Queen of Hearts comparisons. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Beno, thanks a lot. BTW, I'm writing in chat for my new PC. Congratulations that that can finally play games newer than 4 years. I once tried playing Cyberpunk on launch and it was a nightmare on that PC. Now I can run Baldur's on Max. But wasn't Cyberpunk a problem for pretty much everybody on PC? Or am I crazy? Until it kind of got fixed. I want to play Baldur's Gate. I really want to play Baldur's Gate. The problem is that I need to finish the Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, and I can't push myself to finish it. Yesterday I had like a free evening, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and finish Tears of the Kingdom. You know what I did instead? I read some of Fire Punch, and then I randomly started reading and watching old episodes of One Punch Man for some reason. I would have been watching NBA basketball, but I think almost every single matchup that I wanted one team to win yesterday, or this weekend, I think every single matchup that I cared about this weekend went the other way. So I was in a super not happy basketball mood. So by evening, I wasn't even interested in watching. I think Timberwolves beat the Suns. That's one matchup that I wanted, but I did want the Timberwolves to win. But I don't even care about the Timberwolves that much. Anyway, every other matchup went the wrong way for me. All right, back to this. Okay. Philly, thanks for the 10. Saturn said it's been a while since stepping on the surface. I can see the Gorosei not considering Morj as part of Earth, letting Venus bypass World's Strongest Swordsman title. So it depends more so on what Oda considered, like how Oda considers World's Strongest Swordsman, for example. So if you think about it this way, right? If Oda's saying this character is the World's Strongest Swordsman, right? Would we so I'll pose a question for you guys. World's Strongest Swordsman, would that include characters from the White Sea? Right? We already know we've been to the White Sea, so we are aware that there's not stronger swordsmen than Mihawk up there, at least from the islands that we're aware of, right? But intuitively, if you heard title World's Strongest Swordsman, would you go ahead and just include, okay, that also means that a character is stronger than anybody in Skypiea and the Sky Islands, like White Sea stuff? That's a question to discuss, because then it depends what category Oda puts Morj in, because Morj is supposed to be heaven, right? It's supposed to be heaven where the gods live. It's land of the gods. It could arguably be something different. Another little thing that I'll pull up is this, which is, if we go back to Zoro's backstory, I thought that this was interesting with Zoro's backstory. Let me screen share for a second. I'll become even more greater. I'll become the world's #1 swordsman, so famous that even heaven will hear of my great name. Right? What's the Viz translation for this? Viz One Piece chapter. What chapter are we? I mean, Viz is usually worse early on, actually. But just for fun, let's take a look. Hold on. Viz pre-time skip, for those of you who don't know, Viz's translations were not... Nowadays, Viz is much better for accuracy, but back in the day, pre-time skip, Viz was worse for accuracy. They actually hired a fan translator, Stephen Paul, to become their translator, and that's who we have today. Okay. Yeah, so an interesting little thing here, right? I'm going to become such a great master swordsman, but that my name will be known even in heaven. This doesn't help that much, because Viz's translation is obviously shitty. I'm going to become such a great master swordsman that my name will be known even in heaven. I'll become the world's #1 swordsman, so famous that even heaven will hear of my great name. I need a legit Japanese... I need Sandman. Maybe this is a Sandman question, or Arthur O'Hara or something like that. But it is interesting that world's #1 swordsman, like, it is mentally... I don't know, there's a distinction being drawn between that and, like, heaven. Like, I'll become the best swordsman in the world. I'll become so great that, like, even heaven is going to hear of my name, right? So it's more than the world, practically. He's suggesting that goes beyond the world, goes to heaven. So if you want to really, really... I still think Mihawk is stronger than Venus Juro, but I think that the argument is technically there that heaven is supposed to be its own sort of thing in the One Piece world, and the final arc of the story involves actual battle with heaven rather than, you know, it's kind of going beyond the world of pirates and such at that point. Something to think about. Something to think about there. Keenan, thanks a lot. Always good to see you, man. Thanks for the 19 months. I just wanted to know if Tashigi is Queen, man. Like, is Oda really the type of author just to have that be a complete untold coincidence? I don't buy it. I think part of it is the fact that clones are now officially a thing in One Piece, that it's just like the door officially opens. Because, I mean, Stussy is Bakin, right? Like, things like that are now officially in the realm of possibility for you know, One Piece character dynamics and connections. Not to mention, no, I mean, there's nothing concrete there, right? But there might be. That's the thing, there might be. The door is officially opened. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 17 months. I think Luffy's crew is a reflection of Joy Boy's crew. Zunisha is Chopper. Iron Giant is Frankie. Lily is Vivi. Zoro and a Lunarian. I guess not literally King, but Zoro and a Lunarian. Okay, so to that, I do that's like stuff to save for some point in time down the line. I want to see a little bit more of the Iron Giant to kind of make because there's a video that I kind of started doing a little bit of work on, and then I was like, nah, let me just wait on the Iron Giant before we jump to anything crazy. I do think that at the very, very least, I think that I think, okay, so crew, like, I think we might be putting it too much in Luffy's terms. It may be like his court or something like, it's kind of, okay, so the equivalent, right? Like, Odin had his scabbards, right? Not his crew, but Odin had his scabbards. I do think that Joy Boy having his own squad, right? Whatever Ancient Kingdom version of that was. Like, for Luffy, modern day, it's a crew, but I do imagine that the way Odin had his scabbards, I imagine Joy Boy could have had his own squad back in the day. And I do think it's very, very possible that the parallels that people are seeing, I don't know if it'll be as concrete as what we're seeing, because it's just like, I think there's a natural inclination to want to be like, okay, so this was Joy Boy's Vivi, this was Joy Boy's Chopper, etc. But I don't know if we're going to see that tight of parallels, you know? So I don't know if we're going to see that tight of parallels, but I do think that we could see Joy Boy having a clear squad. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Thanks a lot for the 5. Warcury's Haki feat is overblown. Kaido's Haki emanates well beyond Onigashima when he kills Guernica and clashed with Bajrang. Also Big Mom's screen in 868. But the thing that you're talking about is an attack. It's an advanced Conqueror's Haki attack. Advanced Conqueror's Haki attack, you can't you can't compare that, because that's actually like coating your I know the moment you're talking about, but that's actually him coating his club in Conqueror's Haki and hitting with it. That's levels. That's an advanced application of Conqueror's Haki, right? That's obviously going to be a totally different level. We're talking about just comparing base pure Conqueror's Haki release, you know? Base pure Conqueror's Haki release, that's stuff that's not even, like, at lower level just releasing Conqueror's Haki, it doesn't even cause, like, what do you call? I don't even know why this would need to be explained, but isn't it obvious that, like, just releasing Conqueror's Haki in general, like, releasing Conqueror's Haki in general almost never even has any sort of impact, period, right? You can go back to Rayleigh using it pre-time skip, Luffy using it, Fishman Island, most of Luffy's uses, Doflamingo using it, etc. For a long time, the only character who actually caused any sort of physical force by releasing Conqueror's Haki was Shanks, you know? Shanks releasing Conqueror's Haki on Whitebeard's ship, and it actually caused the ship to crack a little bit. For a long time, most readers were unsure, like, can Conqueror's Haki actually be used offensively? And the only depiction we had of it doing any sort of offensive force was Shanks cracking the ship, right? Just a regular Conqueror's Haki release. So it's got to be remembered that in general, just releasing your Conqueror's Haki, like, absolute base level, it's pretty basic. It doesn't do that much. Only, like, some very strong characters like Shanks, Kaido, Big Mom, when they release their Conqueror's Haki, it's actually impactful enough that it has, you know, some degree of physical force that affects the environment. But the majority of characters, like when Doflamingo does it, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to knock people out, right? So when you're comparing that to what Warcury did, which was just releasing Conqueror's Haki, and it legitimately like created force, like shockwaves that rippled across the entire island and kind of had like ships blowing back and stuff like that and buildings kind of crumbling, that's on another level. Obviously, once you're using Conqueror's Haki in an attack, like advanced Conqueror's Haki, like literally coating your club in Haki and like smashing with it, that's going to have way more of an impact than just releasing your Conqueror's Haki like regularly. That's why one's advanced Conqueror's Haki and one's just basic. You can only compare basic to basic. You can't compare basic like Conqueror's Haki release to advanced, because basic Conqueror's Haki release, it's not even an attack. It's never been an attack in the story. It's actually revisionist history to be like, oh, well, you know, this is nothing new. It's like, no, this is totally new. Conqueror's Haki was on its own, has never been used as an attack in the story. Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the first time that it became an attack. So the fact that Warcury is able to actually just release Conqueror's Haki, and it has enough force and scale that it can be viewed legitimately as an attack without an advanced application, that's totally new. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, this is a first. I'd say the only comparable thing is maybe Shanks at Wano, when Shanks released as just base Conqueror's Haki right there. And just doing that alone was enough to make Green Bull shit himself. But beyond that, yeah, Conqueror's Haki on its own has never been really like an attack. It's just been something that knocks characters out. And Big Mom's Screen in 868 is a good example where it is another case of like a top tier releasing all of their Conqueror's Haki and it actually infecting the environment to some scale. But it's like a miniature version of what Warcury did, which is why the comparison is so cool, that holy shit, Warcury's is so much more impressive than what Big Mom's did. Dick So Small, I piss on my balls, says, how do you personally define a good backstory? How do I personally define a good backstory? To me, it depends, like, if you're talking about a One Piece backstory, just in general. Because One Piece backstories, in general, I tend to value them the most based on how they emotionally affect me, because I think Oda tends to do his most emotional writing in backstories. Because backstories are where Oda can kind of go the saddest and come up with the most tear-jerking moments, because the idea is that you're going to fix it in the modern day, so therefore he has permission to go really, really sad in the past. And that's usually when he does his tightest character work, right? Because usually in the modern day, there's a lot of plot elements going on. The backstory tends to be very, very individually character-focused and just taking us through a character journey, which again will lead to a lot more emotional writing. So in One Piece context, I tend to value the drama, the emotions of backstories the most, how much it emotionally moves me. That's why I love Kuma's backstory a lot. a lot of people say, for example, they like the Odin backstory largely because of the Roger laughed, etc. And the lore stuff we got. I view that as a good backstory. Like, I view that as a cool backstory, but not like an emotionally moving backstory. I did find Odin's moment of like boiling and everything really cool. And that was like impactful for me, but not in like, oh, I'm gonna cry for Odin kind of way. I also felt like a lot of other aspects of Odin's story were not that well fleshed out, so the boiling scene was cool, but a lot of the other stuff was like kind of crammed. Yeah, so for me, in One Piece backstory context, it's usually going to be how emotionally moving it can be for me. I think in outside of One Piece, like lots of movies, shows, etc., other manga do backstories. I think all I ask for from a really good backstory is make me care about the character, because that's usually going to be the purpose of a backstory, right? You have a character, we kind of understand them, but now it's time to zone in on them specifically, go through their story, what makes them who they are, and really come to an understanding and make me care about them in the modern day. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 17 months. I think, oh no, we covered this. Let me see if I'm missing any other members. Okay. African Lays, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 3 months. Hey Morj, it's been a while. I hope you're doing well. You too. I'm glad to see you back. I'm not sure if you have answered this before, but what are your Straw Hat versus red-haired Davy back matchups, and how do they go? Okay. Straw Hat versus Davy back versus red-haired Pirates Davy back fight matchups depend heavily on if it's just those two crews involved, or if it becomes a three-way situation with, say, Cross Guild. Because if Cross Guild's thrown in, then I think we could see some Zoro versus Mihawk stuff. If Cross Guild's not thrown in, I mean, you can kind of go down the line and be like, okay, maybe we could see Sanji versus Lucky Roo in some... I think Zoro and Sanji against, like, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo would be a really cool callback. Maybe that's something lazy, because it's just, like, the same scenario as the previous Davy back fight. Okay, let me just make it simple, which is, I think the coolest thing that could happen with the... Okay, let me show you guys something. I think the coolest thing that could happen in Elbaf is this. Not the coolest thing, but the coolest thing in a hypothetical Davy back fight would be this. So we're used to Luffy getting the last fight. I would love if in the red-haired Pirates Davy back fight, Luffy does not get the last fight. What Luffy promises Shanks is that the next time that he finds Shanks, one day I'll find myself a crew that is as strong as yours, and then I'll find the world's biggest treasure, yada yada. I think the emphasis that Luffy put on his crew right here is interesting to me. I would love for his crew to win him the Davy back fight. So I would love to see something like, let's say the final round of the Davy back fight comes down to Luffy versus Shanks, similar to Luffy versus Foxy, Captain versus Captain Combat. I think it would be nice if it's a tie, just a draw or something like that. They call it at a draw, and they need a tiebreaker, and that's where Usopp comes in. I would love if there's some sort of tiebreaker that needs to be called, some sort of odds-based, die-based matchmaking is done or something like that, and what you get is a sniping competition, Usopp versus Yasopp. That's what I would love to see. Because I don't know. It's a few factors. One is I think Luffy beating Shanks straight up in combat feels a little bit... obviously, Luffy has to surpass Shanks at some point, but I'm personally partial to the idea that like Shanks will be defeated by Blackbeard, and then Luffy defeats Blackbeard, kind of positioning himself at the top of the Pirates ladder. I don't think I'd be happy to see Luffy and Shanks go at it, and it's a draw, and that leaves some more room for Luffy to grow, but at the same time, it proves to Shanks that Luffy has come all this way and is now standing toe-to-toe on equal footing with him, right? I think that satisfies things, and I would love to see the final thing of the arc have to go to Usopp in some way. I don't know. That's my dream. I don't think that there's any real logical basis for that being what happens, but I think that would be really cool, which is, why I'm throwing it out. Okay, let me catch up on supers. I know we got a list. Give me 1 second here. I also like the idea that maybe Usopp fails his Davy backfight matchup first, like earlier on. Maybe he loses, because if you remember in the Foxy fight, Usopp lost round 1. Obviously, it wasn't his fault, but... you know what's something really random and weird to me? Which is that in the Foxy round 1... I think that this might be slightly sexist. Okay? I can't find it right now, but if you go back and read the Davy back fight, okay? Go back and read the Davy back fight. I'm pretty sure that this is what happens. So round 1 happens. It's Nami, Robin, and Usopp, right? Versus the Foxy Pirates. They go up against the Foxy group, whatever, and they lose, right? Due to Foxy's trickery. Okay, so they lose. Let me see if I can find it right now. They lose, and then Chopper's crying and everything like that, and he's really upset, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be taken from the crew," yada yada yada, and then Zoro gives him this speech, and Zoro's like, yeah, okay. All right, here. Let me show you guys. All right? So Zoro's giving him a speech. "Shut your mouth, Chopper, you're disgraceful. Blah, 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 dead or alive, your choice was yours alone, don't blame it on the others. We accepted the challenge. Usopp and the others tried their best." What the fuck is this? Usopp and the others tried their best? Usopp and the others tried their best? This trio was Robin, Nami, and Usopp, okay? Out of the 3 of them, I can tell you right now, Usopp is the weakest. Usopp contributed the least in that situation, in that battle, right? It was almost entirely Nami and Robin. Usopp contributed one nice moment of impact bow, which was helpful. But Usopp was not the fucking leader of that group. He contributed the least. It's not even like Zoro's closer to Usopp than he is to Robin and Nami. Zoro's known Nami longer, and he's gone through more situations with Nami, at least at this point in the story. There's no reason that Zoro should be saying Usopp and the others. What does this even mean? Usopp's not even like Nami was part of the crew first. Nami was more important to that Davy back fight. Nami was the leader of the group in that Davy back fight. Zoro knows Nami a little bit better than Usopp at this point. What is this? What does anyone understand what I'm saying here? This is really weird. Because if you go back and read you might think I'm overreacting, but if you go back and read the fight, it's just really bizarre what Zoro says right here. Because it's like you read the race, and the race is basically like Nami having to do a bunch of shit and basically being a navigational genius, Robin fucking up the opponent's shark fisherman and stuff like that. It's mainly them, and then they do all that, they lose due to Foxy's cheating, and then Zoro gets up there and be like, well, Usopp and the others tried their best, but they failed. It's like, Usopp and the others? What the fuck? What does that even mean? I don't know. I don't actually believe the Zoro is racist stuff. That's obviously a joke. But the low-key Zoro is a sexist storyline, that's actually legit. Between what he told Tashigi, down the line, this line just sticks out. It's you might think I'm making a big deal out of it, but it's not me making a big deal if you read the race right beforehand. Because if you read that race, you're coming away from it thinking, man, Nami's amazing. Damn, Robin's OP. That's what you're thinking coming away from the race. And then you hear this shit. It's like, Usopp and unidentified. Usopp and the randoms, they did their best, but for whatever reason, probably they were on their periods or something like that. They couldn't pull it off. I don't know. I think that's really bizarre. All right. Let's move on. Malik says Quina is actually Shiryu in disguise. She'll kill Mihawk and then fight Zoro for the title. I remember there was a time when people had theories that Quina was Mihawk in disguise or something like that, or that Quina would show up as a man in the New World at some point. I don't think Quina's Shiryu though. Big 3 fanboy, thanks for the 5. Confused why Luffy's not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Yonko versus Gorosei, need to see what will happen if Advanced Conqueror's Haki being used on them will be different if Gorosei used Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So there's a line that was stated in the Luffy versus Kaido fight. There's a line that's stated in the Luffy versus Kaido fight, which is basically, I think it's chapter 1045. Here. Where does he say it? He says something like, yeah, he uses the he turns all white, he uses the colors of the armament and Supreme King, blah, 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 right? So, in this moment, we're made to understand that Luffy is using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Even though his moves are making full contact, Oda had to have Kaido establish this, that Luffy is using Conqueror's Haki, Advanced Conqueror's Haki, because otherwise this would seem like it doesn't really make any sense. Because he's making full contact, we need Oda to spell it out for us that he is using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? So that makes sense. But then it leaves it open to interpretation. Okay, in the future, in other instances, is Luffy using Advanced Conqueror's Haki? Because then we can get to, like... Why does it not have this? Oh, I see. Because then we can get to, like... What chapter does Luffy fight Lucci? I think a little bit right after this, right? Like, once you're at Luffy fighting Lucci and shit, and Luffy is physically clashing... Like, here it's clear that Luffy's not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? Because if he was, then Lucci would be, like, inside a wall right now, right? So it's just hard to see... It's hard to tell what Oda's going for with Advanced Conqueror's Haki in Gear 5th. Because technically, even during the Kaido fight, we're never clearly shown Luffy using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, you know, the telltale sign of the large gap in contact. Oda had to spell it out for us. No, right now he is using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. But then here, it's just like, okay, Luffy definitely can't be using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So it's like, is he always using it when he's in Gear 5th? Or is it still something that we kind of are going to need a visual for? I don't know. It's just hard to... I like to think that we're going to get more context once Luffy goes Gear 5th again. I do think that Oda made it needlessly confusing with the number of abilities that are at play nowadays and just the lack of ability to identify when certain things are being used. I do agree that Yonko versus Gorosei, we do need to see what happens if Advanced Conqueror's Haki is being used on them, because maybe, as many have speculated, that's the key to halting their regeneration. Browshy, thanks for the 5. Been watching since the Shanks Elbath video. Oh, holy shit, that's been like 5.5 years. That's crazy. Happy you're still enjoying the content. Saturn's unnamed venom bombs destroyed Warcury's durability. That was interesting to me because they all kind of got called regen merchants after that moment, because it's like, okay, so Saturn's attack fucked them up, and Saturn's obviously not that strong is what we assume. What we assume. But now it seems like, oh no, shit, like it's hard to get through. So I guess Saturn's attack is more potent than expected, but then that means that Luffy was able to knock it back easily, so Luffy's Haki is good enough to... I don't know. I don't know if Oda's really thinking through these interactions that much. It's hard to say. Wait, let me take a look at that actually again. 1,000... Let's take a look at 1,111. Let's take a look at exactly what's happening here, right? Exactly what's happening here. We're going to drop a chart, by the way, of like... Gorosei versus Yonko shortly. We're going to drop a chart and see who's got what. I still think... Okay, so he hits them with that. They blow up. So I actually don't know. It's not clear here if Warcury got damaged by this, right? Let me do a quick poll. Because you don't actually see him getting damaged. You just see explosions, and then you see them emerging from the ashes. It does look like... Yeah, I just don't know. It's... Captain, the flames will block off the forest. No, we have to hurry. These guys can't die. I guess it's implied that they use regeneration, but we don't actually see it. So it could, like in Warcury's case, it could have just been that he's too tough for it to have gotten through. We don't get any visual confirmation that that's what's happening, at least with Warcury. But I guess it's the implication is that they're watching them regenerate. I don't like the lack of clarity on so many things here. That's why I personally do think that we do need more info to really scale these characters, but it's more fun to do it now before we really know. JWP, thanks for the 10. Yeah, Kuino is kind of right so far. The only strong woman so far is Big Mom. Oda gave her a uniquely strong body, size. She could naturally kill giants as a kid. Also, Yamato is an Oni and has a strong devil fruit. Yeah, I just think it's weird that Zoro as a child is very adamant to Kuina that, like, no, like, I don't buy that you're a woman so you're weaker type excuse. But then he has that same mentality still with Tashigi all grown up. That's literally what he says pretty much straight up in Punk Hazard, that like it kind of is confirmed that, yeah, I still think that women are weaker than men in combat. Again, this is not the real world. This is One Piece. It's a fantasy fictional world, right? Big Mom is a freak of nature, and I guess she's the only character that Oda really wrote as a woman that is at that level of strength, which is interesting. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 5. I think Gorosei will each have a single attribute that makes them broken. Regeneration, durability, etc. But the Yonko will be more balanced fighters. It's hard to say. The way I view it now, here's how I view it right now, which is that I think that the Gorosei all have regeneration, right? So let me drop something, all right? Okay? Here's how I view the Gorosei, okay? They all have... Yeah, let me screen share for you guys. Super high regeneration, as far as we know, the highest we've ever seen. I think they all have this. Okay. And then I think individuals, like, let's say, okay, I think, let's say Saturn, I think, well, okay. Let's start with Warcury, all right? Say Warcury, I think, has... I'm doing this in a weird way. I think Warcury... I think they've all got their own thing beyond that, right? So Warcury, I think, has extreme physical toughness / durability, plus extreme conqueror's haki. Okay? So I think he's got this extreme physical toughness, durability, plus extreme conqueror's haki, and that's kind of his thing. All right? And then we've got like Venus Juro. Why does it... Come on, give me big font right off the bat. Venus Juro, I guess you guys can't see everything, right? I think Venus Juro has extreme speed, swordsmanship, plus ice powers. Right? So you get what I'm saying? I think like they have their areas of specialness. Like they all share one thing, which is... This is my guess. They all share one thing, which is super high regeneration. And then I think that they're all getting their own individual additional traits. So like Mars, for example, he has flight plus energy blasts, right? And that's Mars's shtick, you know? Although I am inclined to say that I think it's possible that they all have really high haki. I think it's... Let me take a look at one thing real quick. I think they all might have extremely powerful haki, because... And it might not just be a... yeah, it might be an everybody thing, because... Remember, Mars was also commented on... Look, it's not just... You know, it's not just Warcury. Warcury right off the bat is flexing some crazy Conqueror's haki, but... You know, Jinbei right off the bat is talking about... I mean, this is Jinbei. This haki is unreal. Like, this is fucking Jinbei we're talking about. Like, this dude's seen it all. And this is something completely new to him. So, Mars, I don't know. I feel like they all might have some extremely powerful haki. Saturn, when he first showed up, there was a lot of black lightning and everything coming out from his surrounding area. Okay, Venus Juro has not shown any haki stuff so far. But you guys are getting what I'm saying, right? Like, I think they've all got I think they've all got super high regeneration, and they've all got their own stuff, right? This is Mars. Saturn, to me, Saturn seems the most... I feel like Saturn physically seems like the weakest and least capable fighter. But he's got poison / venom, plus some degree telekinesis, right? Some degree of telekinesis. Is this the right way to spell it? Yeah, because kinesthetic, I think, would be something like this. Okay. Jupiter, I guess, is just going to be, what, size? This is why I'm not too hot on Jupiter. I feel like his thing so far seems to be size plus vortex. I don't know if you can even call that anything of note. I mean, it was pulling them in. So yeah, this is kind of the way I view the Gorosei, right? I think they've all got certain traits. They've all got the key centralizing trait of super high regeneration. And then they've all got their own area of specialty, right? So Warcury seems to be more just straight up powerhouse based. Like, he seems to be the direct powerhouse. He's extremely physically tough and durable, and he has extreme Conqueror's Haki. They all, to be fair, they all might have really high Conqueror's Haki, or it might be, like, maybe not Saturn, but many, like, Mars is commented to have extremely impressive Haki, for example. It might be a shared trait, right? Warcury might have just been the one to show it so far. But Warcury's extreme physical toughness and durability, that does seem to be a him thing. Because Jupiter, they can easily cut up. Saturn's been gotten beaten up for a while. Warcury, that seems to be his thing. Like, extreme physical toughness, I view him as, like, maybe the most physical powerhouse. Venus is obviously more so, you know, the speed blitzing Brook on steroids type character, right? Super fast, ice powers. It's pretty cool. Mars, I like Mars' abilities. He's the flying Gorosei and he gets energy blast. That's like a cool combo. He feels like a Pokemon, you know what I mean? Like, he feels like one of the legendary birds or something like that. And then Saturn, you know, we kind of know Saturn. We've been bored with Saturn. Telekinesis, cool. Poison and venom stuff, cool. He's like the more hacksy, not even hacksy, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, seems to be more reliant on his abilities rather than his physical capabilities, because he's not as physically capable. Jupiter's obviously really big and he can suck stuff in. This is also kind of why, like, I personally rank them this way going around. 1, 2, 3. I'd put Jupiter at 4 and Saturn at 5. That's my thought right now. Let's get back to supers real quick. Sorry if I'm a bit behind. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Did I miss any members in the meantime? Oh, Grizzly Adams, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 8 months. If Emu is Earth, do you think the Gorosei could represent a geocentric orbital model where proximity to Earth represents strength, making the ranking Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, then Saturn? So people talked about that, and I do think that that is possible. Right now, anytime that I'm ranking strength, it's really just based, it's largely based off vibes and trying to guess some sort of logical order. I know people early on were jumping on Jupiter being the strongest because of, like, the numbers or some shit. To me, that seemed really unlikely for a variety of factors. One, it seemed like Oda fucking came up with Jupiter's fruit, his Zoan form, after fucking watching Dune, which tells me that Jupiter is probably not the most planned out of the Gorosei and therefore may not be one of the stronger ones. That's just me. Also, the very first, like, the first character that Oda had the Gorosei flex, or the Giants flex on, was Jupiter cutting his head off. I don't know, just Giant Worm does not give off number 1 vibes. I feel like, you know, if you go off of, like, past ways that Oda's done things like card suits or, like, even King, Queen, Jack, I do think it's more likely that we get some sort of relevance to the planetary order, which is why I was like, Mercury being number 1, Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn. It was also partly why I was like, yeah, even if you look at the first chapter that the Gorosei debut, Venus is flexing, Mars is flexing, Jupiter gets fucked up, and then Oda doesn't even show us Mercury yet because he's saving him for the next chapter, which to me suggested that, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Mercury might be the strongest, then Venus and Mars, and then Jupiter might be the weakest, right? But if we look at the other way, right, which is that Emu is the Earth, right? In that case, Venus and Mars being left and right of him, they could be the next two strongest. And then Mercury and Jupiter, maybe they're supposed to be about the same strength because they're equidistant, 2 planets away. And then Saturn being the weakest, I think that's the one consistent thing that everyone kind of agrees on, that Saturn is likely the weakest, right? I like that because Venus, Juro, and Mars are way cooler to me than Warcury. I don't think anybody thinks Warcury is cool. He's a fucking pig, right? He's just a giant boar. That's not cool. Venus, Juro, badass. Mars, badass. And I think a lot of people like them as Zoro and Sanji's potential opponents, which adds some additional desire for them to be number 1 and 2. So I'm down for that. I like that. Earth being the center, Venus, Juro being the strongest, Mars being the next strongest, or vice versa. I don't know. Venus, Juro, and Mars being the 2 strongest, and then Mercury and Jupiter being the next 2, being 2 planets away, and then Saturn being the weakest. The one other reason I like that is because right now it would mean that the 2 strongest, Venus, Juro, and Mars, they're doing their own thing, and we're actually still just getting to see Luffy and the Giants up against the 3 weakest Gorosei, now the 2 weakest Gorosei, Warcury and Jupiter. So it is still kind of holding off on showing us Luffy against, or the strongest characters against the strongest Gorosei, you know what I mean? Or the strongest Gorosei in action, you know? So, I don't know. I think either interpretation I'm cool with. The straight-up planetary one of Mercury, then Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn. That's a cleaner way where it's just easy to follow, just planetary order. But the other one is logical, and I like it better because it favors the characters that I find cooler, which are Venus, Juro, and Mars. So, Emu center, then Venus and Mars, kind of on the same tier, then Mercury and Jupiter, Warcury and Jupiter kind of on the same tier, and then Saturn last. Anyway. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Yeah, Oda missed with Jupiter. Jupiter has a cool human design, but I think a lame Gorosei design. And then the flip side is Mars is so badass because Mars, in my opinion, had the most forgettable of the Gorosei designs. The least interesting one to me, at least out of the Gorosei. And Mars has arguably the most badass Gorosei design. It's either him or Venus Juro. I think I lean Venus Juro still, but Mars' Gorosei design is really cool. Okay. Moving along. Oh, this was all off of one super, what Nerve and V-Maker said. Benhenor, thanks a lot. Saturn could make an interesting matchup for Bonnie after a training arc, then Warcury versus Dragon, Venus versus Zoro, and maybe Sanji versus one of the remaining 2, depending on who's stronger and if there's a traitor. I can't imagine, Benhenor, I can't imagine Bonnie getting... I can't imagine Bonnie becoming strong enough to fight Saturn, because right now Bonnie is so far off from Saturn. I just don't... Her fruit lends itself to fast growth, so I could see that, but I don't imagine... I just can't... I don't know. I also feel like Saturn might be supposed to be going down this arc, so there's that to consider. But I do like Warcury versus Dragon, Venus versus Zoro, Sanji versus... I like Sanji versus Mars, personally. And I don't know who fights Jupiter. Abyssal Leviathan, thanks to the 5. It took Venus Juro 9 minutes to run around an island. He's absolute fodder and single-handedly downscaled the whole verse to subsonic. I don't think that Oda keeps... All I gotta say is that I really, really don't think that Oda puts that much time into thinking out, like, how long this character takes for that to do this or that. Because, if we're supposed to be accurate with, speed and everything, then Kizaru moving at the speed of light should have blown up all of Egghead, you know? Or probably more, I forget exactly. What's a bullet at the speed of light do? Bullet at speed of light explosion. What would that do? What would happen if you shot a bullet at 99% speed of light at the ground? Well, it's vague shit. But basically some sort of a nuke or something. Potentially, yeah. It's just... One, you can't actually shoot anything at speed of light, right? You can only shoot at a 99% speed of light. But, yeah, just because Kizaru doesn't actually move at the speed of light, or doesn't have speed of light effects, doesn't mean Kizaru's like it's just what Oda has to write for the story. Like it's just what he has to write for. We're supposed to interpret that Venus Juro is really fast because he took out like half the pacifistas in one chapter or like 2 panels or something, and then for the convenience of the story, it took him another 9 minutes to get the rest of the pacifistas. You know. Other Worlds JT, thanks for the 5. Hey Morj, if the Gorosei follow the betrayal trend, which members do you think it'll be? Saturn tying into Devon or Jupiter maybe? Saturn tying into Devon? I mean, I don't think Saturn himself will betray because Saturn's just a bad dude. I think we're supposed to view him as a villain, but Jupiter betraying could be cool, especially because Jupiter, I'm not loving his design and stuff. The other Gorosei seem a little bit more committed to their cause. If you've noticed that Jupiter so far, like, Venus Juro is actively trying to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish, right? Mars is bent on trying to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish, right? Warcury, same thing. Jupiter's the one that's been kind of silent so far. We're not really getting much of a read on him. So, I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting. And Saturn, we know Saturn's been a piece of shit for forever. Rodrigo Aldiaga, thanks a lot. I still think there's one last stage of Conqueror's Haki that only Roger, Emu, and maybe Whitebeard and Rocks achieved. Waiting for the Haki Susanoo, kind of like Ashura BTW in God Valley. I do believe that there's more levels to Conqueror's Haki because we kind of just saw, like, we just scratched the surface, right? Like I think people forget, but it was only in the last 100 chapters that we even found out that Conqueror's Haki could be used offensively whatsoever. To me, that seems like the base application of it. I believe that there's higher levels. To me, Ashura in itself is a huge sign that there are higher levels to advanced Conqueror's Haki use because Ashura is like it's a fucking form made out of Conqueror's Haki. Like it's a transformation made out of Conqueror's Haki. There's no way to spin it. I think because it's attached to Zoro, who is on the lowest end of advanced Conqueror's Haki users, right? People don't hype it up as much, but it tells us a lot about the potential of what actual top-tier advanced Conqueror's Haki users could do, you know? So, I don't know. The fact that Ashura exists means that, like, if Zoro's doing that, and Zoro barely knows Conqueror's Haki and how to use it properly, I wonder what Roger could do in his prime. Shanks, stuff like that, you know? I definitely believe that there's higher levels to all that. All right, still catching up. Let's get the stream likes up to 200. Where am I at? JLo01, thanks for the 5. Wano arc versus Whole Cake. I like Whole Cake a lot better. Kuma backstory versus Kaido backstory. I like Kuma's backstory a lot better than Kaido's backstory. So far, Kuma's is my favorite backstory in the series, and Kaido's is one of my least favorite in the series. So far, Egghead is my favorite arc, and Wano is my least. What about you? I mean, Wano is, I've talked about this before. Wano was my least favorite arc in the story just because I felt like it did not live up to what past really large-scale One Piece arcs have been. Egghead is my favorite arc post-time skip so far, and I think once all is said and done, like the direction, I can't judge Egghead till Egghead's done, but once all is said and done, I would not be surprised if it's, like I'm tentatively putting it top 5 for me. Once it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if it moves up higher. But I'm waiting for it to finish out. JMT93, thanks for the 5. What's your thoughts on the person behind Emu in Chapter 908? Do you think it's a God Knight? Oh, the person that talked to him. Then what's really the government hierarchy? I don't know if it's a God's Knight. I think it might just be Celestial Dragon that's privy to... Because Emu's gonna... You know, I know secrecy's a big thing, but Emu needs his servants and slaves and shit, right? So, it could just be someone that serves him, you know? Because I can't imagine the God's Knights being made to, like, just be messenger boys to go tell Emu to come to the throne room and things like that. I don't know. Or maybe they are. Maybe they are. Like, I can't imagine Figarla and Garling being made to do that. I don't know. Lucky Man, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, between Zoro, Usopp, Sanji, who do you think Nami's closest to? Who's Robin closest to amongst Chopper, Frankie, or Brook? Who do I think Nami's... I think Nami's closest to Usopp between those three. I mean, okay, you could make a case for each, because Nami and Zoro are kind of opposites in that they they used to represent. They don't really have this dynamic anymore, just as characters expanded, crews expanded, etc. But very often, like, the core trio of Luffy, Zoro, Nami was often very central to the decision-making and like, how the story would develop, right? Obviously, they were the first three crew members, right? But even going beyond that, like, you can get to the whole Baroque Work saga, kicks off with Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. They often play this sort of dynamic of Luffy being in the middle and them trying to sway his decisions to what they think is correct, or them roping him, like, you know, Nami saying we should do this, Zoro having a different point of view. I think Zoro and Nami are foils to each other. They contrast they contrast very sharply in what they think is, you know, whereas Nami and Usopp might very often be on the same page or same wavelength, Zoro and Nami are often two total different ends of the spectrum. Zoro's often, you know, if you have a character who's very, like Nami, who's like, let's be very pragmatic and simple about this or something, Zoro's going to be very, and like avoid trouble or something, Zoro's going to be very like, no, we got pride, we got to do this Davy backfight shit or something like that, right? Or if Nami's saying, we got to get involved with this for money, Zoro's going to be like, wait, what the fuck? I don't give a fuck. I don't want to get involved with this. You can see a lot of scenarios like that throughout the series. You can see it with when in Zou, you know, when Sanji left the crew, Zoro and Nami were the ones debating, like, what do we do next? And then Luffy kind of made the decision, right? They often come at things from two very different perspectives. You see their dynamic as the two contrasting decision makers in Luffy's ear in so many scenarios, right? Obviously beginning of the story, but Whiskey Peak, right? Start of Baroque Work saga. Jaya, right? It's Luffy, Zoro, Nami. Start of the whole Skypiea saga. Water 7. Sanji is gone, Robin's gone. It's just Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. Chopper is there with them. Like, Usopp is also gone. They're all doing their own thing. Robin left. Sanji left to do his own thing. Usopp left. It's just Luffy, Zoro, and Nami again. Chopper is there, but if you go back and read all of that section of the story, Chopper is basically, he's not a factor in the conversation, really. Like, it's just Luffy, Zoro, and Nami discussion. It's just a thing. It's recurring throughout the story. You get it again at the start of the Yonko saga in Zou, where it's mostly them talking and not the crew about what to do with Sanji, right? So it depends, because Zoro and Nami, they're very important characters to each other, but they contrast quite a bit. But at the same time, Oda likes putting, like, you know, there's plenty of, like, Zoro obviously very clearly cares a lot about Nami, and there's lots of situations where it's Zoro and Nami together, like the Mr. One, Miss Doublefinger fight. Things like that happen a lot. But I think in terms of just naturally getting along and having a lot of that time together, I wouldn't say it's Nami and Zoro as much. I just think what they represent is very similar, so you could make the argument there. I think Nami and Usopp, like Nami and Sanji, I feel like the majority of their dynamic is more so gag-based, in terms of Sanji being very close to Nami, and Nami obviously liking Sanji quite a bit, but the moments where she actually reciprocates is few and far between. They are still memorable moments, like when she steps in to save him from Khalifa, and takes over that fight and shows respect for him. Obviously, Whole Cake Island arc, I think, was very good for them. Yeah, I think that stuff does happen, for sure. But I think in terms of, like, honestly, like, who are the two closest friends, I think it would be Nami and Usopp. Sorry, I know I've been answering this for a bit, but I'm just actually thinking through the entire story now. It's Nami and Usopp, you know? They're just often just in it together in so many ways, and I think it's very sweet that, you know, when the whole crew's reuniting, you see certain old familiar dynamics, like you see Zoro and Sanji reuniting, but then you also see Nami and Usopp. They're the two reuniting. They're like the two weakling friends who finally got back together, you know, and they're meeting back up at the bar and everything. I don't know. I think Nami and Usopp is a good pick. And you just see that duo more frequently. Okay, Umer Ula, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, who do you think are the most misunderstood characters in One Piece? Sanji, Ace, Usopp, Garp, Mihawk, question mark, would be a good stream idea. I do think that is a good stream idea. Off the top, I do think Garp is high up there. Which is why I put out that video. I think Sanji is complicated in that I don't think he's misunderstood. I think there's been plenty of Sanji defense that goes around, so people either just agree or agree or disagree. I think Ace can still be heavily misunderstood. Yeah, I think that those are the top ones off the top of my head. I think Usopp for sure. I think a lot of people hate on Usopp, but at the same time, in some ways he deserves it, but I think there's so much depth to the character. It could be a good stream idea. I'll think about it. Akyugi TH, thanks a lot. Morj, where do you put Doflamingo in terms of strength, especially compared to Cracker? And in the future, how much do you think he'll be strong? So I kind of put Doflamingo personally at basically comparable to Cracker, and I kind of leave it at that. I just say he's comparable to Cracker, just leave it at that. I think a lot of people will say that one thing to consider is that Doflamingo is an extremely, extremely popular character. So a lot of people are just going to like him better than Cracker. I think if you compare Luffy versus Cracker to Luffy versus Doflamingo, like specifically Gear 4th Luffy versus Cracker to Gear 4th Luffy versus Doflamingo, it is very clear cut that Luffy struggled significantly more in Gear 4th against Cracker than he did against Doflamingo. I tend to give Doflamingo the benefit of the doubt in the sense that Doflamingo was more handicapped at that point in time. You know, just shit happened. He was handicapped at that point in time. He was injured, his organs, blah blah blah. You can read into how handicapped he was, and you can make an argument either way. I kind of just leave it at basically. I scaled Doflamingo to be comparable to Cracker and just call it a day there. I don't think too much more about it. I think it'll be too difficult to really, really nail it down. If you don't think Doflamingo is that handicapped, then I think you just got to say that Cracker's stronger. If you do think Doflamingo is fairly handicapped, then you probably have Doflamingo equal to or above Cracker. I know there's some people out there who even scale Doflamingo to like first mate level or something, and I personally think that's kind of too far. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 10. When the Gorosei were speaking about cleansing the world, they made it seem like they could have done it whenever they wanted. I have Nolan as the Roger of his era, and someone had to capture him. How was the move? Okay, that's several questions. Thanks for asking. I don't think Nolan was the Roger of his era. I think Nolan was a strong guy, but I think Roger of his era was a bit too much. The way they both went out is very similar, obviously on an execution stand, but the difference is, and maybe one of the reasons I say Nolan is not the Roger of his era, is that Roger turned himself in. No one could have captured Roger. I think the fact that they were able to capture Nolan and execute him against his will suggests that he wasn't... I think he was really, really strong, obviously legendary, but not on that level, like Gold Roger level, you know? And yeah, I think the Gorosei... To me, the fact that... I think it's very clear that the balance of the world the way it is, it's just because it's fine, like the powers that be are okay with it, right? Because if you really want to, then you can forget about, like, if you want to get in the ticky-tack stuff of like, well, Gorosei, Yonko, the scaling there, like how much could the Gorosei really have done, whatever. Emu exists, right? So the fact that Emu exists means, and I think we can all accept that Emu is likely the strongest character in the story, right? That currently exists today. The fact that Emu exists means that, yes, we can assume that the reason that pirates are still allowed to live today is because they have not decided to do a great cleansing. It is ultimately in the world government's power. They like things the way they are. They don't want to have... Like, there's so many things that come into play. They don't want to have to come down and fight pirates, right? That's what the Marines exist for. Pirates also don't affect them in any way, right? They live literally in heaven. I think just the fact that they get to choose when they want to do a great cleansing or not basically goes to show that, yeah, they could fuck up the world if they wanted to, and if you don't believe the Gorosei could, well, Emu could, right? I think most people would agree with that. I don't know. Rodrigo Liaga, thanks a lot. What if Emu got all the Gorosei traits at once? Oh, shit! Wait, let me pull that up. So if Emu... What if Emu's like, So Emu suddenly absorbs all of the Gorosei's abilities at the same time, so he would be physically the toughest character in One Piece, like Warcury level toughness. Jupiter's size, the vortex ability for whatever that's worth. Venus Jura's speed, ice powers, energy blasts, flight. Saturn's telekinesis, poison shit. That would be pretty insane, along with the high regeneration. That would be obviously the strongest character that we've ever had. It's an interesting idea, especially if you consider that Emu might have created the Gorosei. Alright, let me move through supers a little bit faster. Deshaun Comedy, thanks for the 10. Your last video said that Red Rock proved Warcury was more durable than Kaido, but that was base Kaido. It said he's tougher in hybrid because of his scales. Just proves Warcury greater than base, but I do think it could be greater than hybrid if we see more. Okay, so if you look specifically it does seem as though it's implied that Kaido has the same scales-based toughness in his base form, because if you go read it, when Luffy was trying to train his armament haki in Udon, he was saying, I need a way to get past Kaido's tough scales, right? So to me, that implies that he's talking about Kaido, like, even in human form, Kaido still has that toughness to his scales, right? Like, he just keeps those traits. It's weird, I know, but, like, we've seen with mythical Zoans, they still get to keep some of their traits. Like, Marco still regenerates naturally when he's even in human form, you know? But even if you don't buy that, Luffy Luffy also did damage to Kaido in his dragon form, you know? Luffy could... Well, I guess he didn't use Red Rock against Kaido's dragon form. Let's see. I don't think Luffy used Red Rock against Kaido's dragon form. Let me check. 1,000... Or did he use any... What attacks did he use? He started using Gear 4th attacks against Kaido's dragon form. Gear 4th attacks. Yeah, I don't know. If you go back and look at early Udon, when Luffy starts training and he's like, I need to improve my armament haki, he talks about how he can't get past Kaido's tough scales. So to me, the implication is that the durability that Kaido has also applies to his human form, and that dragon scale aspect still applies to his human form. That's just my interpretation from the statement that Luffy made. But I don't know. King G says he's still tougher in hybrid. So I guess my question... Okay. So here's what I'll say. Even if you think he's tougher in hybrid, right? Let's say you think he's tougher in hybrid. It doesn't really matter, right? Because... what do you call? Let me pull it up. Luffy... Like, the key thing is that Luffy punches Kaido and his fist hurts, right? He punches Kaido and his fist hurts. Where the fuck is this? I don't think Luffy ever punched Hybrid Kaido and his fist hurt, even before he developed, even before he got to... I mean, no, look at it. I think it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. Okay, so this is Luffy. He's winding up. This is Hybrid Kaido, correct? Hybrid Kaido. Luffy's coming at him. This is before Advanced Conqueror Haki. Luffy comes at him. Gum. Red. He's going to use what? Red Rock. Kaido dodges. Did you just dodge that one, Kaido, because it was going to hurt? I mean, I don't think the implication can be any clearer, right? It's like I don't think that there's anywhere else that you can really spin it. If Oda like, because otherwise, if Oda wanted to draw Kaido in hybrid form, being so durable that Red Rock doesn't hurt him, he would have just had Kaido tank it, and Luffy hurt his arm the same way. There's no reason to draw Kaido dodging unless, like, there's no reason to write this and this dialogue and all this stuff, right? Because if Kaido can just take it like Warcury and it would hurt Luffy instead, then that's what would have happened. Death Pop says that's Red Hawk, not Red Rock. Yeah, but Red Hawk is weaker than Red Rock. Red Rock was the upgraded version of the ability. Like, do we really need, like... Do you really think that next chapter, if Luffy uses Red Hawk against Warcury, that's going to suddenly fuck him up? Warcury's going to be like, oh no, Red Hawk, I got to dodge this one. What the fuck? Alright, I don't know. Like, okay, I know I'm sounding kind of dickish there. I'm sorry about that. But to me, it's just, I feel like now people are just scraping for shit. It's like, well, technically, that was Red Hawk. I mean, to me, the simplest example is, like, also just look at when Luffy punches Kaido in Dragon form. Like, even in Act 1, when Luffy's punching Kaido in Dragon form, which I think we can all agree has it's covered in coded dragon skills, whatever you think the source of Kaido's toughness is, that's not hurting his arm, right? And Luffy at that point didn't even have advanced armament Haki. This is Act 1 Luffy. This is basic baby armament Haki, you know? I'm glad that was brought up, though. Deshaun Comedy says you convinced me. I'm glad that was brought up because it did make me do some digging. Okay. John678, thanks for the 5. Why do you think a lot of people want current powers, Shanks, Mihawk, Admirals, to be stronger than Gorosei, even when they have been built up since pre-time skip? Because, well, Shanks, Mihawk, and Admirals have also been built up since pre-time skip. I mean, these are the characters that we're attached to, you know? Shanks, Mihawk, the Admirals, like... Dude, people have been fans of these characters for decades, you know? Or, like, since you became a One Piece fan, you probably fall into a Shanks camp, Mihawk camp, you probably like the Admirals. Like, these are the characters we're really attached to. At the end of the day, the Gorosei were just these random-ass old dudes that spoke in a very homogenous tone for hundreds of chapters that no one really gave a shit about and no one was really hyped up for. And all of a sudden, they're showing off these really cool epic forms and everything, but we still don't have this history of really getting attached to them as characters, you know? Like when Kizaru is dropped into the story, he gives us this whole iconic, you know, Saboti sequence and everything like that. Aokiji, there's all of this, like, at Long Ring, Long Land. You know, there's so much history with these characters, with Shanks, with Mihawk. The Gorosei really are these basically sort of blank-faced endgame bosses. We didn't even know they're endgame bosses for some time, but they're these blank-faced old men who are now being dropped into the story in the form of endgame bosses, and it's just like, okay, we just got introduced to some crazy, strong-looking video game bosses, but we're going to have natural inclination to not just automatically be like, okay, they're stronger than our favorite characters who we've been hyping for so long. And it's entirely fair to still be skeptical of how strong they are supposed to be, because we haven't seen that much of them, and because their strength is kind of secret, unlike a Shanks, unlike a Mihawk, unlike the Admirals who... You know, we spent so many chapters hyping up their strength, like characters, not just outside readers, but characters in the story talking about how strong they are, how strong Mihawk is, how strong Shanks is. Like, we have like a fucking 50 volumes of these characters being hyped up, 100 volumes of these characters being hyped up. With the Gorosei, nobody's talked about them being strong ever before this arc, right? Nobody's talked about, no characters ever mentioned them being strong. So it's a big adjustment. And we're still trying to figure out where actually should we place them. Because, you know, characters will give us statements and implications that make us understand how strong a Shanks is supposed to be, right? We don't really have any of that shit for the Gorosei. We're kind of just watching, eyes open, we're trying to understand small things like Luffy hitting Warcury with Red Rock and seeing that reaction. That's big, because we really... It would help a lot if Luffy himself talked a bit more. You know, like, if Luffy himself made some statements, like when Luffy was fighting Cracker, Luffy's kind of tight-lipped about all of this type of stuff in the first place. So it makes it difficult for, like, if we could just get some statements out of him, that would be nice. If he said something about, like, this guy's Haki is almost as good as Kaido's, that would be a big deal, versus, like, this guy's Haki is the strongest I've ever felt. You know, these are two very different things. If you remember when Luffy fought Cracker, one of the huge things that made people open their eyes to how strong Cracker is supposed to be, and how we're supposed to interpret this, is when Luffy, I think, mentioned that it's the strongest Haki, or, like, the armament Haki is the strongest he's ever been hit with, or something. No, maybe he didn't even say that. I don't know if he said that. He said something. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I'm imagining that. Might be imagining that. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me see. Luffy, Cracker... I thought he said something when he runs into, when he's fighting Cracker. Maybe it's just us interpreting because Cracker managed to cut Luffy's armament Haki. He cuts him. No, he doesn't say anything about armament Haki. Yeah, I guess I imagined that. Oh no. Okay, all he says is his armament haki is too hard. So it's like it's the only time that Luffy gives a direct comparison to basically be like, this guy's armament haki is better than mine. So, but that was something I remember at the time people really took and ran with. Okay, anyway, let me keep catching up here. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 10. If Venus, Zoro, and Warcury are still around when Luffy fights Emu, does that make them his 1 and 2? Meaning there is Zoro and Sanji's matchups. Or does Mars just seem like too cool of a Sanji matchup? I personally think that Warcury goes to somebody else. I think Venus, Zoro versus Zoro seems, I think most would agree, seems really, really close to locked. I think Warcury goes to somebody else. Maybe a dragon, maybe an Akainu, some people have even talked about. In fact, if you go back and read the Akainu arguing with the Gorosei chapters, he was mainly arguing with top man Warcury. So there's something to look at there. And as for Mars, I think Zoro versus Venus Zoro, Sanji versus Mars, that would be so sick. Sanji versus Mars would be one of the coolest fights you could ask for as a Sanji fan. Zoro versus Venus Zoro. See, Zoro's already got cool matchups lined up like Mihawk. But Sanji versus Mars, I think that would be a great conciliation prize for... a consolation prize, sorry. A great consolation prize for not getting Kizaru like so many people wanted. Like, people for decades were hoping that we get to see Sanji versus Kizaru, like, not just in a little moment of Sanji deflecting a laser beam, but an actual fight of Sanji versus Kizaru. A lot of people actually had that penciled in as Sanji's, like, one of final matchups. But if he doesn't get that, and instead gets to fight Mars, I think Sanji fans could probably be still very happy with that, you know? Sleep Hut, thanks for the 5. Yo, heard on a farmer stream that you're a Jake and Amir fan. Jake and Amir? Okay. Do you have any favorite sketches? I'm a fan of Stock Market and One Almond personally. Jake and Amir are genuinely, I think, my favorite sketch group ever. And they're not super well known, but they have like a very, very cult-like following, I've realized, for like an obsessive cult-like following of the fan base they have, because I think their style of sketches, it's very, very, like, they're doing the same thing over and over, but like in different variations, and you need to be more and more familiar with those two characters for you to find it funnier and funnier. And they just have their own style of humor that gets like in and further and further and further into its own style of, like, it's a style of humor that like doubles down over and over into its own style of humor to like eventually it just becomes almost nonsensical. Like, it's very hard for me to show Jake and Amir sketches to people who aren't really into Jake and Amir, so I stopped trying. But if you're a Jake and Amir fan already and you watch like their newer and newer sketches, it's just, I don't know. Did you know that they're still going? They're still, like, they're putting out new Jake and Amir sketches even today. They finally got, I don't know. It's not super frequent, but it happens, and I think some of the newer ones are like some of the best they've done. Like the newest March Madness Jake and Amir sketch that they do one every March Madness. I think it's the best one that they've ever done. Favorite, I honestly don't have a favorite because I would have to look back through and just like see all of them to really get a reminder of my favorite. I think probably the Ben Schwartz ones, even though they're not classic Jake and Amir, it's more Jake and Ben Schwartz. Those are actually my favorite. I think the Double Date 4-parter that they did, that was really, really good. There's too many other, like, but those kind of stand out because they're like different than usual Jake and Amir stuff, right? So I'm trying to think, like, among the hundreds and like probably like 1,000 Jake and Amir normal type sketches, what's the best? It's too hard to say because they're all like 3-ish minute bits. I'd have to look through, but I'm a big fan of both of those. One Almond's really good. Oh my poo 123, thanks for the 5. The Gorosei's regen could be indicative that they're a product of a devil fruit ability, like how Prince Gru's golems also have regen and some sentience. That is a great point. The fact that they all just have that. Other people have mentioned immortality surgery being the other thing, but I do still subscribe to the belief that they are products of Eamon's creations, so I think that could fit. Basim El Madawi, thanks for the 2. Base Luffy made Kaido dodge to avoid the pain. Yeah. I think I ended up pulling that up, so if I'd seen your comment a little bit earlier, I would have caught it, but yeah. Manny, thanks for the 5. Do you think the new One Piece fans post-pandemic act different from fans of before? I've been a reader for a decade and noticed a shift. I don't think I've really noticed a shift personally. Maybe there has been a shift, but I don't think I picked up on it. Maybe there's been a shift. Why? They're worse? What are they doing? I don't know. Artillery Knight, thanks to the 5. Joined late, so not sure if this was mentioned, but boars are known for their extremely strong head/forehead, so maybe this is just a top man gimmick. Yeah, I mean, it is just a top man gimmick. Or, I know the other Gorosei are not as tough as him because they can cut Jupiter apart like nothing. Saturn might actually be like a fucking hemophiliac because, like, anybody touches that dude, and he's, like, fucking bruised up and bleeding and stuff. But I think Warcury, what he just did this last chapter is really big because it's the first time that it's like, okay, the Gorosei aren't just regen merchants. To be fair, it's only been Jupiter and Saturn that it's been happening to, but it's been a trend. But with what Warcury did this chapter, it's like, holy shit, like, okay, they're actually physically, or one of them at least is actually physically really tough too. Okay. All right. Andrew Adami says there's definitely a difference and it's easy to tell by the way they talk about the series. Can you guys elaborate? Because, like, I can't personally differentiate too much. I actually don't know. Virgil Hawkins, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 19 months, man. It is always good to see you, and you're always a great presence in the streams and very helpful as a mod. Should have put Witch Hat Atelier and Houseki no Kuni, Land of the Lustrous, in the bracket, but I don't think they would have won. Witch Hat, maybe. I don't know. I see a lot of people talk about that. Both use the manga medium expertly. Witch Hat Atelier's paneling is especially creative. Plus, favorite and least favorite Earth Mightiest Hero Avengers. Oh, that's a fun question. Maybe because I mentioned that I was sad that got canceled last stream. I'll put down... I think I have Witch Hat Atelier down. But... I'll just have it down. Favorite and least favorite Earth's Mightiest Heroes Avengers? I've always been a Thor fan. And, not... Okay, I was never huge into Marvel, but I've always been a Thor fan just because I thought his abilities are cool. Here's the thing, like, Thor used to be lame in the MCU because he's generally is kind of just like that. I think Earth's Mightiest Heroes did him a bit better. But one of the cool things I liked is that just as Earth's Mightiest Heroes got canceled, but then around the same time Thor Ragnarok came out, and suddenly Thor was, like, everybody's favorite in the Avengers. Not everybody's favorite, but, like, he became way, way, way cooler in the Avengers. And then, obviously, in Infinity War, he was, like, got the biggest moment and everything. So, but before that, before Ragnarok, Thor perception was that he was kind of lame. So I always enjoyed Thor's portrayal in Earth's Mightiest Heroes more because even though he's still, like, you know, all Norse Shakespearean poetry type shit and, like... I don't know. There was just something cooler about the way they made him fight and do stuff, and they gave him better moments. Least favorite in that show... Let me see. Gotta look at the full crop of characters again, because it's been a minute. I think Hawkeye annoyed me. Tony Stark was also much less likable in that. I think Tony Stark was less likable in that. Actually, Hawkeye didn't. I think it's just because I viewed him as a lame superhero, but they tried to make him more badass in this, and I wasn't buying it. And Tony Stark was a little bit annoying in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I don't know. Just not as likable as, obviously, Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, Vagabond would have won anyway. Old Faithful, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 11 months. Hey, Morj, have you ever thought of making a Wano analysis video? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming soon. Don't worry about that. I have belief that it will come out before the end of Egghead now. I believe that it'll come out before the end of Egghead. Because there was a day during the 3-week break that I got to pull it out and look at some stuff for it again. Okay. All right, let's actually make the it's been a minute, but I should have done this earlier. Let's actually make okay, hold on. Let's make the comparison thing for it now. Okay? So, all right, everybody take one last good look at this. We're going to make a new paint thing, and we're going to compare Yonko versus Gorosei. All right? So, we got Jupiter. No, I'll keep this one up. I'll keep this one up just so we have it, all right? If I make a new one, how do I do this? Can I just... Okay. Okay, we'll have both up. We'll have both up so we can reference. Okay. So, here's how I view things. Am I sharing at the moment? Yeah, I'm sharing. Okay. Here's how I view things, all right? So, among the Yonko. Here's how I view things. Hello. Okay. Why is this not bold? Yonko. One more time. Bold. Alright. And... the fuck. Okay. It's not bold. This is fucking insane. What is going on? Alright. And be this size and bold. Alright. We got it. Alright, we got the Yonko over here. Alright, we got the Yonko over here. And we're going to have the Gorosei over here. Alright. Okay. So. Among the Yonko, you guys know who we got, right? I'm not saying, I'm never going to think that every Gorosei is equal to every Yonko. I don't think that's the case. I'm just looking at Saturn, and dude already doesn't look that good, right? Like, we know that not every Yonko is equal to every Gorosei. But the Gorosei do have a spectrum. I personally think that if I'm just doing comparisons, I think that I'm just going to go ahead and group Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks as classical Yonko level. That's kind of what I view as classical Yonko level, right? I fucking hate Microsoft Pay. Okay, I view Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks as like the classic level of Yonko. Now, we don't really know where Shanks falls. Maybe he's a bit above them. Maybe he's a bit below them. We don't know. But I'm just going to group him with them for the sake of grouping him with them, okay? Old Man Whitebeard, I think, falls a bit below them. And Blackbeard, I don't think Blackbeard at this moment in time is on their level. I just look at Blackbeard versus Law compared to Shanks versus Kid. I'm like, I think that there's a solid gap here. Not saying that Blackbeard's like way far off. I just think that it's clearly just a little bit different. He hasn't shown the Haki that the rest of them have shown. Obviously, he has very strong fruits, but we know there's just less to go off of with him. And again, the Law incident, you can kind of just compare. Like, compare Big Mom fighting Law and Kid at the same time to Blackbeard fighting Law by himself. Big Mom fighting Law at the same time was a wash. Like, she's easily handling him. Law and Kid needed to be fighting together, trading off sneak attacks, etc., to get their hits in. Whereas Blackbeard, Law was able to hold out somewhat decently. And even if you don't like the Big Mom comparison, well, then Shanks, like, fucking washed Kid in a single panel, right? So I kind of view this. So when we're talking Yonko level, I kind of view this. Like, are you on the Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks level? Right? I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a really fucking high bar to hit. Right? No matter how you spin it. Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks. Big Mom is Big Mom, so I think everyone can kind of imagine characters fucking up Big Mom because, like, just so much shit happens to her. Like, you throw 4 of the weaker members of the Stride crew at her and, like, they'll fucking make something work, you know? Shanks is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where it's just, like, he's so mysterious and he's made admirals shit their pants and he's, you know, one-shotted, like, First Commander type characters like Kid. Some people think Kid's above First Commander. I don't know. But he can do that sort of thing. And then you got Kaido, who obviously fought for, like, has shown so far the craziest endurance, durability feats, etc. in One Piece. He's been the biggest tank that One Piece has, right? Then over here you got the Gorosei. And at the bottom, the problem is that the Gorosei were first represented by Saturn. And Saturn, I feel, is not the best representative because Saturn isn't all that. I don't think I'd put, like, if I'm looking at Saturn versus Blackbeard, I'm taking fucking Saturn, you know? Or sorry, first fucking Blackbeard, you know? And I think Blackbeard is not even, like, standard Gorosei level. Or sorry, fucking mixing up my words. I did not have a lot of sleep last night. All right, Blackbeard isn't even standard Yonko level in my eyes, and I think he would fuck up Saturn, you know? I think Jupiter also not that impressive. Saturn, what's been happening? At best, maybe a bit stronger than Kizaru. Bruises like a peach. has telekinesis, but that doesn't stop Luffy from just powering through. Venom balls also are destructive, but got hit back by Luffy, right? Nothing crazy. I just don't think Saturn's shown anything that's that impressive, right? There's not a single moment that I'm like, okay, Saturn makes sense. He's the man. 1 second here. I forgot I got to kind of move chat to a separate page. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay, let me just catch these real quick. Jojuan Corbett, first super, congrats, man. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. I think newer fans are way more into the fights and not the storytelling. They couldn't care less about the narrative, just Kaido greater than all. Damn, maybe that is the case, but I always felt like power scaling was a big part of One Piece, so I could see that being the case just because if you're an older fan, then you've been around. So, like, older fans, right? I think with older fans, you've been around when One Piece was out of the big three, right? It wasn't the fights-focused one at all. Like, One Piece really wasn't known for its fights for the first 500-something chapters. I think Marineford is when power scaling really took off in One Piece, but before that, you almost never... Like, before that, most storylines, we'd be getting to fucking, like, Drum Kingdom, and, like, you're fighting this tin can dude and his two subordinates who are just, like, a guy with hammers and, like, a bow or something like that. Like, you know, I mean, even when we started getting to stronger enemies, it'd be still nothing crazy. Like, CP9 is strong, but at the end of the day, it's also just, like, a giraffe and, like, a wolf type, like, a fast wolf with hard armor and stuff. Like... The characters that were exciting for power scaling, the outside characters like Admirals, Shanks, Whitebeard, Mihawk, we were only seeing them once in a blue moon. So One Piece really was, the fandom in the first place was really built off the back of its storytelling more than anything, right? People didn't hype up the fights or the super powerful characters in One Piece. At least not for the first, not till Marineford. Marineford is when all that changed, because Sabaody through Marineford is when now all the shit's on, like, all the shit's flying. Like, now you got these super top tiers doing all this crazy stuff. You're trying to figure out, like, the levels. Like, okay, these Whitebeard's commanders are doing this against, like, Admirals, and Admirals are doing this against Whitebeard, and all of that stuff, right? And then from there, it kind of continued. But that was, like, over a decade ago. So I imagine there was more of an influence. I know Marineford brought in a lot of new One Piece readers, so I guess the power scaling angle has been growing since then, but at the very least, it was probably still a good mix of readers who were more story focused, who had just been in the series like because of story aspects that carried the story, that carried One Piece as a series for the first like decade of its run, first 15 years or so. And then maybe the pandemic, I guess that's when lots of like anime fans who didn't like One Piece before finally gave One Piece a try, and they're coming in with more. I don't know. Once you're binging it, then you're getting to the stronger stuff and the fights and the power scaling stuff faster and earlier. So I could kind of see that being a reason. I don't know. Anyway, but I don't think I've noticed anything that crazy. Like, I still think people care a lot about the story in One Piece, as far as I've seen. I gotta pop this shit out again. Okay. Did I miss anything? Okay. Ranch Dodger 2000 says, being a power scaler in One Piece must be such a headache. Oda doesn't care and also isn't very good at it. I mean, the Venus Jura thing that came up earlier in the stream, I think, is a great example where it's like, somebody, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, somebody was bringing up how it took Venus Jura 9 minutes to run around the whole island and how that fucks up One Piece's power scaling forever. But it's also just like, I don't think Oda's like that. I think Oda does care about power scaling, by the way, because you will have Oda break down a lot of things of like, yeah, this character's on a, like, power scaling does matter. Like, One Piece is a climb, right? It's a climb up and up and up. I think Oda does make it very clear that, like, there are layers to, okay, beating Doflamingo is not as impressive as getting to, like, first mates, and once you're getting to first mates, then there's, like, levels even to that, and then above that, you're getting the admirals and such, and now it feels as though, I'm just saying, I think there's been more and more, like, Shanks, Green Bull, Luffy, Kizaru, Luffy, Kaido, stuff like that, that seems to imply that more Yonko are above admirals on average and things like that. I think Oda does care about power scaling a lot, because the whole point of One Piece is that One Piece is probably one of the most power scaling focused storylines ever for a main character. It's all about Luffy climbing to the top of the pirate world and ultimately becoming the strongest character in the world, right? It's very, very ladder focused, very ladder based. However, when people say Oda doesn't care about power scaling, I think Oda's just straight up because he juggles so much story elements and so many things going around and so many moving parts. I don't think he thinks very hard about each individual interaction or what each individual character is doing. Sometimes it's just like plot-based stuff that needs to be happening. So, like, he can write Venus Juro covering half the island in 2 seconds, and then covering the whole island takes 9 minutes. And that's not something that Oda's really calculating in his head. It seems more like, I just need shit to take 10 minutes, so it's gonna take 10 minutes. Take that as you will, you know? Manny says he doesn't care as much as us. I would agree, but, I mean, like, he does care quite a bit. I think you can kind of go too far sometimes and be like, some people are just like, no, Oda doesn't care about power scaling. If you care about power scaling, then you don't care about the story. It's like, no, if you don't care about power scaling, then you're not, then you should be reading a fucking different series, because One Piece as a story is fucking built on the idea of these characters getting stronger and stronger and stronger and climbing a ladder. Like, you need to really care about the scale of strength that Luffy's ascending for a lot of the story elements to have weight, you know? Like, otherwise, why does it fucking matter that Luffy's fighting Kaido 1v1 now and splitting the sky with him? Like, so much loses meaning if you're one of these, like, pretentious-ass, monocle-wearing, like, oh, I don't care about the power scaling, I only care about narrative. Really? Okay, then go fucking read, like, To Kill a Mockingbird, you fucking pretentious-ass liar. Like, no, this fucking like, we just read a fucking 50-chapter battle across like Onigashima was a fight that lasted fucking like 60-something chapters or whatever, with like power-ups and characters gaining new abilities and like new levels being explained, and Kaido talking about how high Luffy's ceiling will go and shit like that. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, I think here's how I would say it. Oda cares a lot about power scaling, but he's bad at being consistent with it. Does that make sense? Aether, thanks for the 10. The power scale was broken when it took Luffy 2 weeks against steel plates to go from a normal guy to top of the verse. Then it became apparent Rayleigh could have taught him, but didn't for plot. I have no response to that whatsoever. I do think it was weird that Rayleigh kind of left Luffy to his own devices, because Luffy completed the basics after a year and a half. I guess it's kind of because, like, the next things that Luffy needed to learn had to be based off of Haki blooms. That's how I would headcanon it, right? Because the only way for Luffy to improve future sight or improve observation Haki was to fight Katakuri, right? And Luffy did improve his armament Haki by training, but first he needed the Haki bloom against Big Mom. If you remember, Big Mom breaks into the prison. That's when Luffy gets his first experience really doing advanced armament Haki Ryo. And once he gets that first experience, then he's able to kind of practice it, right? But he wasn't in a position to really be training any of that with Rayleigh. He needed to be put in life or death situations, first against Katakuri, then against Big Mom to get those down. And then finally against Kaido, he gets the Haki bloom with Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Alright. Okay, where are we at? Jupiter. Jupiter gets fucked up by everyone. Giants, buildings, just a big dude. Okay, so I'm gonna say right now, Jupiter and Saturn I don't think are that strong. Alright? Jupiter and Saturn, I think any of these Yonko can take him. Alright? So I'm gonna say this is the clearly below Yonko. Okay? Let's say this. Clearly below Yonko. Okay? And then I'm going to put this tier as maybe comparable to top Yonko. I don't know why I did this grouping of Kaido, Big Mom shit. Like, okay, let's just say what... Okay. Let's just say when I'm referring to Yonko level, I'm referring to Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks. Or at least Old Beard level. Okay? So this is going to be the new level that we're talking about. Alright? Can I not just make this green? I fucking hate Microsoft Paint, man. Just be green. Why can't it be green? Okay, there we go. Alright. And now we want it back to blue. Mister says Jupiter's wind was actually getting to the ships off the coast. Yeah, but it's just like... We're talking about... It gets stopped by a building, so I'm not that impressed by it. Okay, I'm gonna add one other thing, which is well, we'll get to it. Okay, so Warcury, right? More raw, greater raw conquers Haki than Kaido / Big Mom. More durable / tougher than Kaido. Kaido plus infinite. I think looking at these factors, Warcury having greater raw conquers Haki than Kaido / Big Mom. I'll say seemingly. Okay, seemingly greater. Plus, he's more durable than tougher than Kaido. Plus, he has near infinite regen. So, to me, if I'm looking at Warcury... Okay. Okay, let's talk about Venus Juro first real quick. We'll get through them all. Venus Juro. One of the best speed feats in the story. Likely near top tier swordsman. And then Mars, Unreal Haki, according to Jinbei, who has seen Yonko level Haki. Right? So these are the things that they have going for them, right? Ice96, thanks a lot. You forgot to add Sabo to the Emperor list. Okay, Yonko. Level will refer to Now, I'll just say, yeah, Yonko level will refer to Kaido Big Mom Shanks. Let's do that. Okay? If you think old Whitebeard was on their level or even stronger, that's fair. If you think Blackbeard is already on their level, I'm not going to debate that. I'm just going to say... I guess I shouldn't even have put Old Man Whitebeard or Blackbeard level. I think I overcomplicated it with that. I'm just thinking things through. Also, big note. Big note. Only Venus Juro is in hybrid, and hybrid is traditionally the strongest fighting form for zones. No, Saturn is also. Okay. Of the strongest Gorosei, only Venus Juro is in hybrid, and hybrid is traditionally the strongest of the zone forms. So take that into account. To me, that matters because to me it's unfair to compare, like, you're comparing Warcury to Kaido, and it's like you're using hybrid Kaido feats. We haven't even seen hybrid Warcury feats, you know? Because if you want to compare, like, Dragon Form Kaido, fucking Dragon Form Kaido was getting fucked up by, like, Raizo and shit, you know? If you compare Dragon Form to just straight up Boar Form, I think the Boar Form has looked better so far. I do believe you could say it's a jump to assume that their hybrid forms are better for fighting, but so far we've been seeing, like, Saturn fights in hybrid form, right? And he's the weakest, so he probably has to do that to keep up. Well, I think Venus Juro is the better example, right? Venus Juro, he has to clear all the Pacifista, he goes hybrid form, sweeps them all up, right? I doubt that Venus is stronger in his horse form than he is in his hybrid form. PD, thanks a lot. Does Kizaru actually smoke weed, or is he just slow? So, I'm going to be honest. I think a lot of the community was like, how do I say this? So, a lot of the community viewed Kizaru as basically just a troll, and people characterized him as a troll for years. But according to, like, Japanese stuff, like, with Japanese translations, it's not supposed to even, like, have been like Kizaru was trolling, but more that he's, like, mentally slow, like, stupid, which is, I don't know how accurate that's supposed to be. I guess you got to ask Japanese people, but I do think that's interesting. Yusuf says Warcury's awakened. That's not base. I'm saying hybrid. Hybrid and awakened are two different things, right? Because you can be awakened but not be in hybrid form, right? Because Venus Juro, as far as we've seen, doesn't Venus Juro pop up? Let me check one thing. Venus Juro, as far as I've seen, let's take a look together. Where did the Gorosei first show up? Around here, 1109. Okay, so the Gorosei show up here. Okay, was Venus Juro? Yeah, so Venus Juro shows up awakened. He shows up awakened, but then he goes into hybrid form, right? So we can assume that hybrid is still stronger than your pure zone form. Flame of the Spirit, thanks to the 5. Is Gear 5th Luffy's hybrid form? We don't fucking know. With Luffy, we don't fucking know. Because his is so fucking bizarre, it doesn't even make sense. Because when his isn't awakened, it's just a whole different fruit. It's just the fucking rubber fruit. So it's really hard to tell with Luffy. I don't know what to say about it. Wrenchlotter 2000 says, every Awakened Zoan user has been in their hybrid form, but Doflamingo and Katakuri obviously weren't. I don't think being Awakened automatically puts you in hybrid form, because, again, look at Venus Juro, right? Venus Juro is in his full Zoan form here, and he's Awakened. Then he goes into his hybrid form to fight. Loud Waffle says, Gear 5th being a zone still makes no sense, lol. I mean, it's why nobody fucking ever predicted that or thought about that, because it's just, it doesn't fit with anything we were told before. But, you know, it's new information. John678 says, why is your wallpaper two birds making out? Is it? Well, my wallpaper changes based on, I don't want to show all the stuff I've got up, but wallpaper automatically cycles. Jupiter's literally in his full sandworm form on that panel too. Yeah, I'm saying that, like, I think that, so from what I'm seeing, right, they all show up in their full Zoan forms, correct? Saturn excludes Saturn for the moment. They all show up in their full Zoan forms, from what I can see. Saturn's been fighting in hybrid, from what we can tell. Or this is not hybrid, this is whatever. This is like full. But they're all in their full Zoan forms, right? From what I can tell. The new ones that showed up, Jupiter, Venus, Warcury, Mars, they are all awakened, but being awakened doesn't mean that that's their final form, right? Because you can still go hybrid on top of this, because, again, with Zoans, traditionally what we've seen, full animal is weakest, then human, then hybrid is strongest, right? Was the same. Well, Kaido was a kind of an exception in the sense that he had a weird exception in the sense that his strongest move was in dragon form, but outside of that one move, his dragon form was always the one that just got fucked up. Like, every time. Like, Act 1 Luffy fucked it up. The Scabbards fuck it up. Like, Kaido's progression was always, like, dragon form, then go human, then go hybrid, right? He fought the Scabbards. He was dragon form, lost to them in dragon form, then went human and defeated them. He fought the Supernovas. He started again in dragon form for some reason, then went human, then went hybrid. Luffy Act 1, he started dragon form, then went human. Kaido's just looped back around, where his final move ended up being dragon form again, I guess because big finisher needed. But in general, yeah, like, we can usually assume the hybrid form is their best for fighting, right? So they're all awakened right now. They're all fighting in awakened forms, but they are in their full animal forms. I think just if we make the traditional assumption that, I mean, I think Venus Juro is the simple evidence. He's got to get some shit done. He goes hybrid form. He fucks up the pacifistas, right? So I think we can assume, I mean, maybe it's a bad assumption, but it's just based on the entire story, so I don't think it's a bad assumption. I think we can, like, they're just not fighting in their strongest forms at the moment. Raydel Ninja, thanks for the 5. Do the Straw Hats know who the Gorosei are? Or do they just think some big-ass monsters showed up for no reason out of nowhere? That is actually a great question. I don't think the Straw Hats have ever acknowledged... The Straw Hats have never met the Gorosei. They've never even heard of them, right? They literally do just think some big-ass monsters from the world government showed up for no reason. That's hilarious. That's actually a really funny way to put it. Okay, so let's actually do a quick breakdown here. So to me, I think on paper, I'm just going to do an on-paper comparison. I think if we're looking at just Kaido versus Warcury, right? Kaido versus Warcury. On-paper comparison of what we've gotten so far. Just taking a guess, right? The problem is that the biggest things... So, like, whenever people have hyped up Kaido, right? Whenever people have hyped up Kaido, the biggest things that people go to are that he's the biggest tank in One Piece. Traditionally, that's what Kaido gets talked up the most for, that he's the biggest tank in One Piece, that he can, take all this damage, fight all night, keep coming back. He's so tough. That's kind of his thing. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's many people who argue that he has the best Haki or anything like that. I think most people tend to think that Shanks has better Haki. He's usually not talked about as the fastest character, but he's obviously very fast. He's speedless Luffy in round 1. He has Future Sight. Like, Kaido's got the Haki stuff. He's got Advanced Conqueror's Haki. He's got Future Sight. But I think people tend to talk about certain other characters probably being a little bit better than him at Haki. But Kaido's calling card has always been that he's just a beast. Like, he's a tank, right? So Warcury is the first character that we've got who is, I think, like, clearly better. Not clearly. We need more evidence to say for sure. But on paper so far, Warcury is better at Kaido's specialty, which is interesting, right? That is interesting. because like in terms of both aspects of it, in terms of like how physically tough you are, like how hard it is to damage you, Warcury is strictly better than Kaido from what we've seen so far. Unless Advanced Conqueror's Haki is some really weird shit where... I mean, I imagine Advanced Conqueror's Haki will damage Warcury the same way it will with Kaido. Okay, so with Warcury, it's two factors, right? He's physically... His exterior is tougher than Kaido's. And on top of that, he has seemingly infinite regeneration, right? So in both aspects of what makes Kaido a tank, why is Kaido a tank? Because one, he's really, really hard to damage, period. Two, if you damage him, he can kind of keep going with high-level endurance, right? What makes Kaido physically extremely hard to damage and has extreme endurance, so even if you damage him, he can keep going. That's the gist of Kaido, right? That's his main calling card, right? With Warcury, physically even harder to damage than Kaido, and even if you do damage, then infinite regen. So looking at it, just comparing Kaido's biggest strength, Warcury has him beat in his biggest strength, right? But that's obviously not everything. I do think, from what little we've seen, Warcury does have more impressive Conqueror's Haki than Kaido. We have not yet seen if Warcury can use Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I should move this whole thing over here. Can you guys still see it if it's over here? You guys can see it if it's over here. I guess I can't move this. I'll just white it out. Let me catch the two supers real quick. Or just one. Manny, thanks for the 5. Zones become very inconsistent over time. I agree. Look at Luffy and Chopper. Make no sense to regular rules. I agree. He does... Okay, so what... Let me erase this shit. Oh, wait, I forgot. I gotta do... Because if I erase it... No, the eraser works now. Do you guys remember that one stream where the eraser was being really weird? Not weird, it was showing a not transparent... I don't know, it was being annoying. Okay. Kaido versus Warcury. I think it's entirely possible, for the record, that Kaido is way stronger than Warcury. I'm just saying, like, we're just speculating. We're having fun. Right? Kaido still, overall, has done a lot more than Warcury. Green Tomato, thanks for the 5. Lucci and Kaku make sense, but, like, what are Luffy's forms? Gear 5th is Awakening, so therefore Gear 4th is his full Nika form before Awakening, technically. I don't think it works like that. I do think that everything before his Awakening was just him stretching, the limits of what he could do with just being a rubber man, personally. Double R Elise says, I wonder how effective Advanced Conqueror's Haki is against Warcury. Yeah, because it might be the case where Advanced Conqueror's Haki can hurt Warcury. Like, it doesn't just hurt Luffy's hand, it actually does damage to Warcury. But then maybe Warcury can regenerate, so we need to find that out, right? Or maybe regeneration doesn't work against Advanced Conqueror's Haki, in which case, then we are back to Kaido definitely being the bigger tank, right? Because there's a silver bullet that stops Warcury, whereas Kaido could just keep going. Kaido versus... Okay, yeah. Then little note is just, what font do I want to do? What color? We'll do this, yeah. Note, Warcury displays more raw conch. Than Kaido, but yet to be seen if he can do Advanced Conqueror's Haki. This makes a big difference as well. Does not use it against the Giants. So it's possible he can't do it, because he does not use Advanced Conqueror's Haki against the Giants. So that is a big kind of point right there. Derek White says Dawn symbol didn't phase Kaido, therefore Hawk advanced. Yeah, and I do think, from what it looked like, Dawn symbol does seem... Let me check again. Would have been the chapter before this, right? I mean, there's no black lightning that comes out of it. Man, I just wish Oda fucking... the fucking Haki shit better. It's just, why not... Just, why not just do the... Why not just make Haki clearer, man? Just, it's so... Why not make Haki clearer? I think the big tell was when that animator, the animator for the One Piece anime came out and was like, yeah, I'm not really sure when we're doing Conqueror's Haki or not. I think maybe when it's this color, it's Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Derek Miles says, imagine thinking there was no Advanced Conqueror's Haki on Dawn's symbol. I guess there was. I don't know. I would at least like to see lightning. I would at least like to see lightning, personally. Let's see the previous chapter where Luffy did a Gatling on him. Was it this chapter? Previous chapter? Might have been previous chapter. Dawn Gatling. There's no lightning here either. I don't really know what to say about this. I don't think I can give a hard take on the Advanced Conqueror's Haki situation there. Okay, so going back to this. Kaido versus Warcury. I'm still going to say, like, okay, look. At this moment in time, I'm not going to go so far as to say that the Gorosei are stronger than Kaido, Big Mom, or Shanks. I think there would be a really big fucking problem if, like... Because if you go back to Marineford Whitebeard, he had trouble with every single admiral. Like, he had trouble with Kizaru. He had a lot of trouble with Kizaru if you go back and read him versus Kizaru, okay? I personally think that if you threw... I think Venus, Juro, Mars, I think that these characters are probably as strong as Kizaru, if not stronger, okay? I don't think that's crazy to say. I think Saturn was already being portrayed as being as strong as Kizaru or stronger, right? So I don't think it's that crazy to say. Or at least in the same ballpark. I would not be surprised if Venus Juro is supposed to be stronger than like an admiral, like Kizaru or something like that, right? So I think based on that, my feeling is this. I feel like, let's say we take Venus Juro as an example. I think someone like Venus Juro or Mars, I would maybe bet on them against Old Man Whitebeard, something like that, right? Saturn, I still feel like Old Man Whitebeard would fuck him up. He'd just find a way. He'd just fuck him up, dump him in the ocean, do something. Jupiter, same thing. Mars, I guess we haven't even seen fight enough to know. But Venus Juro, just with the speed, with the regen, I would bet some money on him. Like, I think he would give Old Man Whitebeard, similar troubles, if not more, similar to what Kizaru did at Marineford, okay? Once we move past that, Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, I just think those characters are so fucking strong. I think it's too early for me to be saying that the Gorosei, like even the strongest Gorosei, even if, like Warcury being the strongest or not, Venus, Juro, Mars, I don't know who, it's too early for me to confidently say that the Gorosei are as strong as like Kaido, just yet, okay? Let alone Shanks. Big Mom is Big Meme, so I might just say, yeah, they're stronger than her, but like, even then, she's supposed to scale roughly to Kaido, right? Not exactly equal, but like right about there. Like if Big Mom fought Kaido, it goes a day and a night or whatever it went, right? If Mars fought Kaido, does it go a day and a night of them being perfectly equal? I don't know about that. So like Warcury, the tricky thing is that on paper, I just think it's interesting that on paper, he's better than Kaido at the two things that everybody really views as Kaido's biggest strength, right? He's better than Kaido at... he's just physically tougher than Kaido. That's not that crazy, right? Like, even King, many people believe, was physically tougher than Kaido, just based on Zoro's attacks on King versus Zoro's attacks on Kaido. But the difference is that Kaido is also just a huge damage tank, in that even if you do damage him, he's just going to keep going and going and going for, like, however many rounds, right? But Warcury's probably better at that, too, because even if you do somehow damage him, which hasn't happened yet, he will just regenerate, which is better than having high endurance because you just don't even have to deal with it in the first. You just regenerate, right? You don't even rack up the, like, you know, Kaido got scarred by Zoro. That wouldn't happen to Warcury as far as we know, unless Advanced Conqueror's Haki is a weakness to them, right? Unless that's the case. So on paper, Warcury is better than Kaido at the two things that Kaido is. At the general area of being a physical tank, right? Which is Kaido's thing, right? So that's something interesting to me. I also still stand by that, like, look, just in terms of straight up Conqueror's Haki, the Conqueror's Haki release that Warcury did was on a significantly more impressive level than anything Kaido or Big Mom have ever done in terms of Conqueror's Haki release. Only Shanks has let loose like something of that range, just like that quantity of Conqueror's Haki. But point for Kaido is that Warcury is not yet shown if he can use Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So if he can't use Advanced Conqueror's Haki, like if he can't apply it to physical attacks like punches and stuff, then it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? Because Warcury attacked the Giants, or he attacked Luffy, so he was going after Luffy. The Giants blocked him and pushed him back. So it doesn't really matter, right? So those are the big things. I still feel like, just based on Venus Juro, the Gorosei should be stronger in their hybrid forms, just based on what Venus Juro is doing. He's the only one that's gone hybrid out of the new 4 Gorosei that showed up. So I still feel like if we're going to see some Advanced Conqueror's Haki usage, it's not going to be from like Warcury or something like that. It's not going to be till he goes to his hybrid form. But Oda writes the way Oda does, which is why he has characters fight in random forms for no reason for long periods of time. Like, why did Kaido always start every one of his fights in dragon form for no reason for extended periods of time, no matter what the threat was? We don't know. He just did. Oda's doing the same thing with the Gorosei, I feel. Why are the Gorosei who are trying to capture Luffy fighting in their big-ass Zoan forms? They just are. Venus Juro is the only one. All I'll say is this. So there are 3 different missions going on right now, right? Which is stop the broadcast, defeat Luffy, and capture him, and then finally deactivate the Pacifista, right? Those are the 3 missions that the Gorosei had lined up, right? So Oda as an author gives he includes these villains, and he's like, they have 3 objectives: stop the broadcast, capture Luffy, deactivate the Pacifista, right? Now, we all fucking know that the broadcast is supposed to go off for the story, and Luffy's not supposed to be captured, right? Those are 3 things, like, Luffy's not going to be captured right here and defeated, and the broadcast has to go off. So, but at the same time, the Pacifistas do have to be deactivated for future use by the bad guys, right? So, with those 3 missions, the one mission that is, narratively speaking, supposed to be a win for the bad guys, the Gorosei, Oda has that character, Venus Juro, go hybrid mode, go all out, succeed, deactivate the Pacifistas. Flip side, Oda can't have Luffy be captured here, right? And he can't have the stop the broadcast mission succeed. So with both of those storylines, he's kind of like writing it in a manner where the bad guys don't succeed. So what do you know? Luffy's not supposed to be captured for the plot, therefore have Warcury and Jupiter fight in their giant Zoan forms, their pure animal forms, just like, you know, you kind of got to include some plot-induced stupidity just to make this not work out for them, right? Mars, I don't know how much turning into hybrid form would help him in this situation, but it's just a general thing, right? Like, you only need one. Like, if you've got the villains trying to accomplish 3 goals, but plot-wise, as the writer, you can only really have one of the goals accomplished. They're supposed to fail the other 2. To me, that makes sense why he's writing one of them fighting as competently as possible in their hybrid form, and then the other 2, he's finding a way to kind of have them job their, just job a little bit. I don't know. It makes sense. I just think it's interesting that the only Gorosei that's supposed to succeed is the one that Oda has go in hybrid mode right away, and then the Gorosei that are supposed to be kind of killing time for the plot, and not actually get their win, he has them probably fight in maybe their less effective forms. I'm just saying. Emu looking at that like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Oh, job means this is maybe a more American comics term. They use that in their power scaling. Jobbing is when an American comics power scaling is fucking hilarious. There's no point to it because, like, keep in mind, One Piece and in general manga that you read, these are singular series written by singular authors with like singular visions of what the characters are, how strong they're supposed to be, etc. And even in this series, we have so many debates about like who's stronger than whom, like where does this character stack, where does that character stack, like there's so many debates even here, like, and it's all one story written by one guy with one vision who has an idea of roughly how strong all the characters are, right? American comics are fucking hilarious because imagine the same problems but amplified by like 100 because all the characters are fucking written by like 50 different writers. So everyone has their own little idea of like, it'd be like if we took 50 people from the chat, like who all have their own power scaling ideas of how strong Luffy's supposed to be compared to Zoro, compared to Kizaru, compared to Kaido, etc. And they all get to write their own comic runs and storylines, etc. And some authors are writing with characters that they're not so familiar with, right? Like let's say you're suddenly writing a comic where you include a character that you don't know too well, it's Silver Surfer or something like that, right? Then maybe you don't have a great idea of how strong they're supposed to be. Like you kind of know, you think you're familiar, but you don't know the full lore the way certain fans do. And so, or you have your own personal biases or your own personal misinterpretation or something, and then so you have the character wildly overperform or underperform. So the American power scaling, like DC Comics, Marvel Comics, etc., they have their own terms. Like the way they power scale is like a little different. So they have terms like jobbing, which we don't use as much in One Piece because jobbing tends to be basically, it's like, oh, if you have Darkseid versus, I don't know, like Hal Jordan or something, and Hal Jordan's holding out better than he should, okay? People would often say Darkseid was jobbing in this encounter. Basically like, I believe I'm using this correctly. It's been a bit for myself too, but like just fucking up, underperforming as to what he should be. People just treat it as like an outlier that shouldn't have happened. The character is just fucking up, right? Being poorly written. Plot-induced stupidity, PIS, that's a much bigger term in American comics discussion than it is in manga, because in manga, at the very least, it's all one guy writing it, right? So, you know, you're getting what he thinks is accurate, right? But in American comics, like plot-induced stupidity is just like, well, maybe this author included Thor in the storyline, but they're not super familiar with Thor, so like they wrote themselves into a corner where Thor is probably too strong for this storyline, so therefore they have to come up with like Thor conveniently forgetting his powers for the entire storyline, like just not using lightning the entire time or something like that. That's plot-induced stupidity, right? In American comics power scaling, you also hear these terms more, which is like, here we're just going to be like high diff, low diff, right? Like straight up, like the Shanks versus Aokiji, someone will say Shanks high diff, something like that, right? In American comics, the terms that you hear more often is 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, right? Meaning, like, if you have Superman fight Wonder Woman 10 times, let's say, I think Superman takes it 8 out of 10. Like, he'll take it 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, right? You don't hear that as much in One Piece, like, or in general manga, because in manga, it's like, well, the author's writing it, he knows who's stronger, who's not stronger. In American comics, it's millions of different writers, different issues, different runs. So when you say, like, compare character A to B, it's like, well, you know, you'll see a variety of like, everyone assumes that different things can happen based on who's writing or whatever. So they apply terms more like percentages. Like, yeah, 9 out of 10 times you should see, like, Deathstroke beating whoever the fuck, like Nightwing or whatever in a comics, right? He takes it 9 out of 10 times or something. A stomp would be like 10 out of 10 times. But because the comics are so messy and like so much different shit happens and you see such wild situations take place and like undeserving characters win or like characters being unfamiliar with who should be stronger, they have to phrase it as like 6 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, because it's just like they accept that, yeah, even if character A is way stronger than character B, because it's fucking comics, character A will win, I think, like 8 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times. Anyway. All right. Mr. Controversial says PIS happens all the time in One Piece. It does, but it's just used more in American comics because, again, like in One Piece, you at least understand that it's all written by... When it's all written by one dude, you understand that there's at least a consistent vision of what is supposed to be the case in this guy's mind. Like, yeah, like Jinbei flipped Big Mom and like Jinbei and Robin rolled her away. But you can understand that we get the full gist of the story. We understand that Big Mom is still supposed to be way above Jinbei and Robin, right? On the flip side, in American comics, it's just like so much random shit happens, and like so many authors might have different interpretations. Like one author might write Batman like legitimately doing some crazy ass shit that just goes beyond, like that only works if other characters totally forget how to fight whatsoever, right? Because it's spread out across so many authors, like it's more so like the readers really have to pick and choose when they're pulling out like, no, this just should never happen. This should never happen. This is just plot-induced stupidity by a bad writer. It's usually when readers over there are bringing up plot-induced stupidity, it's usually just calling out like, this is just straight up bad writing. In One Piece, it's all written by the same dude. So we understand that he understands to some degree who's supposed to be stronger than who, right? So like we still criticize Oda for bad writing or things that don't make sense power scaling wise, but you'll see the term plot-induced stupidity less because it's just going to be more rampant in American comics where there are a ton of different writers who may or may not be as familiar with certain things and may have to write more contrived situations for more nonsensical power scaling moments. Anyway. Anyway, all right, so this is what I'm looking at. The way I'm going to finish off the stream is basically, these are my general thoughts. I still think Jupiter and Saturn are two of the weaker Gorosei. I think Warcury, Venus, and Mars represent the upper end. I'm at a moment where I'm thinking that like upper end Gorosei, I think would give Old Man Whitebeard a run for his money, and it's possible that their ceiling could be traditional Yonko level, Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, but I'm not going to put it there yet. I think I need to see more from them. That's me personally. I think if people think that Kaido's way stronger, Shanks is way stronger, I think that's still possible. If you think already that the Gorosei are stronger, I think that's possible too. I think we need a bit more, but this is what I'm looking at it as right now, which is the potential is definitely there. Like, if you look at just, let's say, Kaido versus Warcury, because they're the two Gorosei on either end that we've gotten to see the most of, not counting Saturn, because Saturn's weak. On either end, Kaido's the Yonko we've seen the most of, and Warcury's the Gorosei we've seen the most of. Therefore, they're the easiest to compare, at least in recent times. I do think it's interesting that Warcury is better than Kaido in the areas that Kaido specializes in and are kind of like the thing that people in the community tend to put him on a pedestal for, right? Warcury is better in those aspects. Obviously, that's not everything. Kaido has a variety of abilities. I do think that Kaido's variety of abilities is a bit overstated because, like, at the top level, like, Kaido's wind stuff doesn't matter at the top level. Like, that was stuff that was, useful against, like, scabbards and fodder, but, fighting... Once Kaido was fighting Luffy at his full potential, like, Luffy's full potential, wind stuff didn't matter. Fire was basically irrelevant until, like, Boro Breaths stopped being relevant a lot. Like, Luffy could walk through Boro Breaths, basically, even by the time he'd just reached the rooftop, even before Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Like, the only thing that was really... Like, out of Kaido's variety abilities, the only thing that really seemed to matter at the end was the giant magma form. So we can keep that in mind. But I do think Kaido's variety of abilities are a bit overrated because a lot of them are only useful against weaker characters. And against the top level, it seems more so that his physical fighting is what matters. But that's besides the point. In terms of durability and endurance, it does seem like Warcury is above. Kaido's obviously displayed much better offensive power, much better Advanced Conqueror's Haki, way faster, flight, yada, yada, yada. And he has his big finishing move, the magma form. So overall, Kaido's still shown way more. I do think it's interesting that Warcury displayed more Conqueror's Haki than Kaido. I acknowledge that maybe I'm reading too much into it, but at the same time, I think that was supposed to be an important moment to tell us something about the Gorosei. I don't think that Oda was having Warcury, I think that was meant to be a notable display of Conqueror's Haki that we had not seen before, right? So I think that there is merit to that. I think it's going to depend on if Warcury can actually use Advanced Conqueror's Haki and how strong that is compared to Kaido. And lastly, I will maintain that I think that just based on Venus Juro, we can expect the stronger Gorosei to be even stronger in their hybrid forms, and that Oda is essentially doing, as we talked about, plot-induced stupidity at the moment, to have them fight in their beast forms just to make things, like, just to not have everybody lose right away, like, not have Luffy and the Giants just taken care of, you know? And again, that's not anything new. Oda had Kaido fight Luffy in Dragon form in Act 1, just so, like, we got some more action. Kaido had the Scabbards fight Kaido in Dragon form to begin with, so that the Scabbards could get a win on Kaido before, you know, Kaido moved away from his beast form. Oda had Kaido fight the Supernovas on the rooftop in Dragon form before they got their power-ups, just so that it's a fair fight, because the beast form is basically the least useful fighting form traditionally for the Zoans. Okay, so, wait, I think I got one more super. JWP, always good to see you, man. Thanks a lot for the 5. In comics, characters have been in so many stories. Example, a character scales at town level, but in one story they destroyed a galaxy, stuff like that. Yeah, it's just difficult because it's like, all it takes is one, right? So, because, you know, most of us here are big One Piece fans, obviously. We all have, like, a vision of, like, we've read the story. Let's say we take Zoro as an example. We all have a vision of how strong Zoro is, right? So, you know, if I handed it off to one of you guys and, or 10 of you guys, right? And you all wrote your own stories about Zoro, maybe one of you has you need to have Zoro encounter other characters, right? So maybe one of you has a story where you have, like, Zoro fight Law or something, right? And then that's a contentious enough topic, even amongst us. And, like, we're reading a series that's all written by one guy, right? But Zoro versus Law, that's a contentious topic. Maybe if you decide to write Zoro versus Law, you're like, okay, I'm a Zoro fan. I feel like Zoro's stronger, so Zoro's going to win this matchup or something, right? But somebody else is writing the story. They're going to have Law win it, right? Maybe they're writing a Law storyline, and they have Law run into Zoro, and they're like, because it's a Law storyline, you're going to write Law a little bit better, right? So that's a minor example, but if you keep going down that train of thought, it's like, you know, what if you have Zoro run into, Blackbeard, or someone maybe a little bit outside the range of what most people think Zoro should be doing. But you're a Zoro fan, so you write a scenario where Zoro is just the way you write Zoro, maybe he fights an Ashura the entire time and he beats Blackbeard, right? That's all that takes, one author doing that. And now Zoro is going to be scaled by some people to Yonko level, right? Because now it's officially canon, it's published in a comic, right? And now that showing might have effects on future showings because other authors are reading that and they're like, oh, okay, so Zoro can beat Blackbeard, according to this guy. That fits my interpretation of Zoro, so now you've got Zoro fighting, you know, Shanks or something like that. These things just happen, right? It depends a lot on what you think. Like, one author interpreting one thing one way and then giving a character a feat, like, just changes everything. Because it's like, okay, in this issue, you know what? The Hulk's going to lift a mountain. That means that in all following issues, other writers can reference, wait, the Hulk is strong enough to lift this mountain. I think Secret Wars this happens, right? And that changes how they can all write the Hulk going forward. You know? It's just the way shit goes. And then the reverse goes too, which is just like, you give the character a really bad showing where they underperform to some other character, and now it's like, okay, so if this lower level character can beat the Hulk, then I could write, like, you write some issue where, like, Wolverine beats the Hulk, right? And then it's like, okay, Wolverine beat the Hulk. Okay, well, then Spider-Man could find a way to beat the Hulk. Okay, now Daredevil, I can write an issue, this is a Daredevil versus the Hulk issue. Okay, I'm going to write a way for Daredevil to beat the Hulk, you know? Shit like that happens. Rodrigo Aliaga, thanks a lot. Morj, quick question. Who you got, Goku versus Superman? I think Goku is clearly way stronger than Superman traditionally is. Like, I think it's not really fucking close, because as far as I know, like, it's truly not close, because even if you discount Super, they were galaxy level by the end of Z, right? They're destroying galaxies and everything like that. Superman doesn't do that in most comics, right? Superman is, to my understanding, generally... Well, here's the tricky thing, though. Here's the tricky thing, because people are going to freak out. The problem is, and it's a problem with comics, too, like, in general, which is that Superman traditionally, like, they're not blowing up galaxies and stuff like that. Superman's not doing that shit. But all it takes is, like, Superman can move planets around, usually in most versions. Like, often there's reboots, so that kind of resets the power scale of the universe and everything. But Superman moving planets around and stuff like that, that's doable. But, flip side, like, you'll have some issue where an author writes something like, Superman was holding something that was like a miniature black hole in his hand. And then that could just be a one-off little scene, but it skews how everybody in the fandom's interpretation of Superman becomes from then on. Because it's like, wait, Superman was holding like a miniature black hole in the planet. What does that scale to? Does that mean that Superman is like galaxy level or something like that? I would say traditionally, as far as I recall, Superman being like planetary level or something like that makes sense, which is a far cry from Goku. However, in Superman's favor, this is not talking about like Silver Age Superman. Back then, he could like sneeze and blow out like galaxies or stars or something like that. I think that's probably, I forget where Super Goku scales to, but like Dragon Ball Z Goku, probably Superman would take it. I think. I'm not sure. It would be competitive. And then also Superman has lots of like other forms, like Cosmic Armor Superman, or Superman like 1 million, like Prime 1 million, like whatever that is. I forget exactly. Like there are like godly versions of Superman that Goku's probably nowhere close to. So let's keep that in mind as well. But I'm talking traditional, just normal ass Superman. It's like not even close. Okay. Yeah, WRL says Superman Silver Age sneezed away a solar system. I don't count Silver Age. I assume always that we're talking about modern, current Superman. To be fair, I have not read DC Comics since New 52. So I'm still thinking New 52 and also post-Crisis. Like, those are the two versions of Superman that I know. Maybe current Superman is on some new shit. I don't know about that, though. Cringy Gull, I don't know who you are, but I see the check next to your name, so I assume of note. Wait, did Superman rock up to Egghead? I'm confused. No, we just got way, way, way off topic. Also, I think I'm pretty much caught up on stream stuff, supers and everything like that. I think I'm pretty much caught up. All right, everybody. I'm going to call it here. This was a fun stream. Wait, no, let me give you guys a poll. Let me give you guys a poll to finish it off. Need a poll. Need the voice of the people for sure. Okay. So, current Superman is the fusion of all his versions. So then he'd basically be like as strong as Silver Age Superman. Cringy Gull says, yeah, I was joking. Alright, poll, yeah. Okay, let's just say okay, let's say this. Let's do 2 polls. Alright, we'll do 2 polls. How strong are Gorosei? Yonko level. Okay, so I'm phrasing this in the question, but everyone I'm going to reiterate this before I post the poll, right? I'm asking how are the Gorosei in terms of Yonko level, right? For the purposes of this poll, Yonko level does not include Blackbeard. It does not include Old Man Whitebeard, not Marineford Whitebeard, all right? It is just Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks. We're going to call that Yonko level. Because I could see plenty of people arguing that like this Gorosei or that Gorosei could be Blackbeard. For the purposes of this, like, just use Yonko level to mean Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, because that's what I'm more interested in. I'm more interested in seeing how many people think that the Gorosei scale to, like, Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, all right? So, yeah. Interesting. Okay. So a lot of people seem to be on the Gorosei train. To be fair, you guys are, my regular viewers for the most part, and I've definitely put out a lot of videos hyping up the Gorosei as of late, and I generally give them a lot of hype in streams and such. So I could definitely understand. Because we got over 80% believing that at least some of the Gorosei are Yonko level. So some people think they're all Yonko level. I personally disagree. I don't think that Saturn is as strong as like Kaido, Shanks, Big Mom. I just don't think that's the case. But I do think that the strongest of them, like if there's a kind of scale to them, I do think the strongest of them could be at that point. I'm going to do one more. Let's just see straight up. Kaido versus Warcury. You guys got to call it. Kaido, Warcury. And I'll add one for equal. I feel like equal is a cop-out, but I'll throw in equal. But only vote equal if you genuinely think that they're equal, right? Don't be like, I think they're close, so I'll say equal. Either one wins or they're dead equal. Okay. So majority still say Kaido. Makes sense. I would still lean Kaido. I don't think Warcury's shown enough for me to put him above Kaido. But I do think the possibility is open that maybe it's Warcury, or maybe that they're about the same level. All right. 3, 2, 1. It stays Kaido. And yeah, with that, we're going to call it a stream. So thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. And yeah, I saw some people saying that the spoilers for the next chapter are insane. The spoilers are not out yet, but it was one of those pre-spoiler tweets that was like, everybody is shocked by the next chapter or something like that. Like the next chapter is just absolutely mind-blowing. So yeah. Okay. I'm looking forward to next chapter.